I mean, like Caroline had the auditions tonight as well. They're doing "You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown." So basically, Macbeth in the cartoon in the New York or the Sunday cartoon form.
Yeah. With strong Christian overtones.
Is there strong Christian overtones in
Charlie Brown? Yeah, kind of.
Well, I guess I didn't even realize that.
They were making fun of it on Robot Chicken when the Great Pumpkin came to life and killed all of them.
I remember that episode. That was funny.
Generally speaking, Robot Chicken, I think, is there just to make me laugh and then feel like a horrible person for all my childhood memories.
Yeah, they did some really good Star Wars spoofs. I think they had one where after Jango Fett's head got cut off and Boba's holding the helmet, like his head falls out of the helmet. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. What was the one where Optimus Prime died of prostate cancer?
Yeah, and he transformed into a coffin.
So good. Yeah. Or what was it when Mario accidentally took the wrong turn and didn't end up in Mario Kart but Grand Theft Auto World?
Yeah, that.
And got a hold of some mushrooms.
Yeah, I started tripping out. Yeah, there's some pretty. The one that threw me over the edges with the unicorn and the unicorn sauce, and oh my, that was just so wrong. That was just so wrong on so many.
The one that made me fall in love with it was just the small sketch with the gummy bear. It's like trotsing along, singing the gummy bear song, and gets its foot stuck in a bear trap and just starts screaming. Oh, yeah.
Do we have notes? I'm sure we have notes somewhere.
Yeah, we have some notes.
We got all of them, dude. I mean, they're all.
Did I put my games on the list? Oh, yes, you did. Okay, great. There you go. Okay, I was about.
You're welcome, TC.
Well, I was thinking about driving that all the way here. I'm like, oh god, I know I put it on the Twitter, the feed. On the Facebook feed. But I don't know if I put it on the.
Well, I guess I didn't know if we had to put it there or not. I just put mine there because I'm like, well, I'll put it there, and then I think I put it there first, and then later on I was like, well, you guys probably not see it if you don't, if I don't put it in our chat. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to be much better about flipping around to different things and windows this episode. I think. I need 3 monitors. Then I could be an evil computer genius.
Or just a nerd.
Oh, I've been that for a long time. That state of my personality has not been in question for a long, long time.
Yeah, I got some of these games on Trent. There's at least one on Trent's list. I have no freaking clue what it is.
Oh, there's one of yours on there too. I think maybe we can go somewhere with this general idea of trying to respond to I don't know, the hatred of the community towards games we like. I'm thinking we could read the 1-star reviews. I don't even know. I think 1-star. We should almost not go 1-star. We should go 2-star.
No, because we go 1-star, and
well, that's the people who did it on principle. You never rate a game a 2 on principle. You're never I'm gonna rate this one a 2 on principle. It's I'm gonna rate it a 10 or a 1.
No. I want to do 1 so that I can go do Firefly and read my own review.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna assemble a list here that is that's got a snippet from all 5 of your guys' favorite games 1-star reviews, and you have to do the matching. I'll read the quote, and you say which of the 5 games you chose that this one applies to.
Now, what was it I put for Firefly? I think I gave it 1-star, and I'm the only design improvement is they upgraded roll and move to move and roll.
Yes, that's the great one. So TC, can you decide from this review here which one of your 5 games was?
Probably all of them.
I have to make you choose which of these games you want to insult.
I threw these 5 games. I threw these 5 guys in particular because I was just asking for it by putting these games on here. And I tried to choose things that weren't obvious because, like, you know, I always throw out Cosmic Encounter. I'm just like, yeah, that one's obvious. We gotta dig deep here and have a real amount of fun.
Yeah, well, here we go, TC. This one right here I think is vague enough that I would love to hear which one you want to apply it to. Such a good idea that was so poorly implemented. There are dozens of variants out there that attempt to fix this game, including one that I made, but none are truly satisfactory. Wow, he doesn't even have confidence in his own stuff. Best, and then he finishes it with 2 words, best avoided. That's a pretty damning. That's pretty rough right there. That's what bad
you know. I'm gonna go with Tin Goose.
Nope.
Nope.
Keep going. Keep going. Like down the list.
I'll kill Shakespeare, but I kind of doubt that one because I don't think anyone even wants to play it through to even try to fix it.
Well, what was it on that one? I heard that was like,
I love it.
Kill Shakespeare was something I heard a lot of people say that it was something along the lines of, there's a great game that cannot be deciphered by the rule book in here somewhere.
Oh, it's beyond that. Well, oh man, I can't wait to talk about it because it's a story. But yeah.
Oh, that was the one that like Jim and Punching Cardboard kept wanting to get played, and like everything kept falling apart with it.
It's bad, but yeah.
There's a 4-star review. Only played once, but I'm sure I'll never have to again.
That's a 4-star review?
That's a 4-star review right there. That's like one of me. I can never give anything lower than like a 5. I feel like I'm such a weenie wuss when it comes to like the numbers, because like I try to find the positive in it, and I'm like, you know what? There's so many. I mean, like seriously, to me, like a 4 is something that just has nothing there, and so much of what we play is like deciding what's the best out of a whole field of good games.
You're talking about a 1 to 10 scale here, or a star?
Yeah. That's what I think that, you know, like it's. And I do understand like that, like a 1 through 5 star for movies tends to get more like, you know, you get the 0s and the 1s and the 2s more, so it's like more spread. Like people see like 2.5 and they're like, oh, you know, 3's a good score.
And one of my games has a surprising update after listening to a podcast today.
Okay. Well, Trent, welcome on, dude. It's good to hear I hear your voice in the background there. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I actually hadn't said anything yet, but
I thought I heard you trying to talk. Or the thing I was referring to is that you were like, I messaged Trent here outside of the podcast, outside of the public eye, and I was like, you know, you should check out this game or whatever. And he's like, there's just, you know, I know what you're talking about, and I'm sure it's probably a good game, but like I don't have time anymore for anything but great games. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So, and I feel you, man. And that's kind of like, you know, when people listen here, like, you know, whether or not a game's going to be at least playable. Apparently, unless you listen to TC, and then he puts games on like apparently I Kill Shakespeare, or not I Kill Shakespeare. Geez, man, that sounds like a threat.
I'll take
Kill Shakespeare.
There has only been one game I can honestly say was completely unplayable, and I am probably the only person on the face of the earth who has access to the sole copy of that game.
It's not that one where you go around the Monopoly board and like punch each other in the balls.
No,
is it that Catalica game?
It's Catalica. Yeah,
yeah.
My dream for that game is to actually, if I can ever get the courage to open that box again, and is to at least put it in some type of broadly playable state and take it to conventions and call it Catalica the Experience. And just have people experience this game because it is unbelievable.
Yeah, the one I heard about was there was like some minis battle game they based on the on Honor Harrington novels, and like they tried to include too much 3-dimensional aspects into it. So it got to the point if like you weren't the one who had created the game, nobody else could figure out the rules. To be like, I'm on level 3, my guns are pointing to level 2. I think I'm at medium range. Okay, I'm going to do a twist move, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
All right, guys. I'm going to try to keep my review to as concise as I can get it, just with having like 20 games for us to go over. I think we're going to have some content here. So let's get her kicked off.
I don't have to work tomorrow.
Jerk.
Sorry, go ahead.
2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm your host, Joe Sallin. I'm joined tonight by our 4 regular panel hosts, which I guess I'm including myself in that 4. But there's 3 guys with me here. I first got Andy Dennison, who is apparently unemployed. I think Andy is looking for a ride. Where you want to get across town? Is that right, Andy? No, I can't come there right now, Andy. I've got a podcast to do. How you doing?
Pretty good. Today wasn't too bad.
Okay, well that's fantastic.
Just playing, stay at home dad, the logistics pick up and deliver game,
which is also known as Through the Ages, the app, which Andy has now been logging hours upon hours on. How are you getting all those hours in, man? It sounds like a real hard job you've got.
Yeah, well, it's no teacher.
Dude, I played games today, but it was with a high school game group. And actually, it's a fantastic success. But I would not. I don't know, man. Like it was an absolute blast. But it is so chaotic. I'm like one adult in a room full of 20, and I'm trying to manage a lot of kids. Like, fortunately, I have wonderful kids that help me run tables. There's about 3 or 4 kids in there I can count on to be like the other adults in the room. Speaking of other adults in the room, TC Reed was the adult bringing his daughter back from
that to TC instead of Trent with that line.
Wow. Thanks, Andy. Love you too, bud.
There you go, TC.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize about the camera situation. I have just immediately came home and logged on to do this shindig. So,
dude, it's the best you've ever looked.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? A static shot of some art. It's pretty awesome. If you stare at it real hard, it moves.
Oh, my grandparents had like a tiki mask that did that. Then they always made me take naps in that room. It's horrible.
All right. Well, thanks, TC. And good luck to Kate, by the way. Kate, TC's daughter, was auditioning for a play tonight. I don't think I quite got that all the way out, but there's also auditions tonight for my wife. They're doing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown here. And on that side there on that side of the country, I suppose, because TC's out there on the West Coast. On that side, over there. Over the Rockies, over there, they're doing the play that you shan't name, the play that must not be named, about a king in Scotland, right?
Yeah, and I think it was my wife's proudest moment of her daughter, because Carissa's really into Shakespeare, and she was just like, "Yay, finally!" So yeah, there was much rejoicing over in the Reed household today.
Yeah, see, then you do things like I do to my wife, which aggravates her. Because I finally told her, I'm like, look, honey, I found Shakespeare that I like. And then I held up a copy of William Shakespeare Presents Star Wars.
Yeah, actually, that's a lot better than what I did. I held up a copy of Romeo and Juliet.
I actually have a confession here based on this. Like, I just listened to a Shakespeare reference on Big Brother. I'm now watching Big Brother thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus. Carmen got me to start watching Big Brother, and I will never forgive you for that, Carmen. Check them out at gamesurplus.com. And that's not the only other adult in the room, by the way. Thanks, TC. We've also got Trent here on the podcast. Trent Ham, how you doing?
Hey, yo, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Wow. Listen to the
That's the sound of a father that has just put to bed 3 children.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Yeah.
Well,
we done.
He's about to put 3 more children to bed on this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. And we're going to be talking about our favorite games that we think are easy targets for people to poke fun at, to make terrible 1-star reviews of. And I think we're going to have a little bit of fun as we've each created a list of 5 games that we are going to then prop up, kind of like a T-ball, because, we can't just insult games in the air. We have to have them served up to us on a silver platter, which we are going to do for the other co-hosts here to absolutely insult and be nasty towards, but in a very fun-loving way. Except when Andy's on, I just really want you to hate those games.
I don't know. Given the ones I picked, it's once again, it's one of those that like, yeah, every game I picked is polarizing. It's either, oh, this is awesome, or I want to bury someone I hate with this game just to like defile it.
Yes, get them into it. Make them play this game. It's so bad that just the thought of sending my enemy to this game it brings me joy, vengeance. Well, we will first review games, then we will do the old-fashioned roast. Speaking of which, this is a roast because we're on episode 180, and we're going to take a little 180 and take a turn towards the worst and talk about the worst features of some games that we like. So that's where this all comes from. And actually, TC, I think you started this by just dropping a list of 5 games.
Yeah.
Like, here's a turd in a phone booth. Like, here's...
Well, Trent initially, I think it was Trent or Andy. You like just listen. Like, we should talking about games. We should beat on each other's games. I'm like, okay, here's my 5. Let's go. And I legitimately I put a few of them on there just asking for trouble.
Yeah. My original suggestion was, can we name some games we like that we get pushback against ever getting them into the table, and then we can name the ones we like, and that the other hosts give the pushback.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where TC went with it. In the TC way of like it's not hard for me to think of games that get pushed back.
And if you all want a more awkward version of this, what was it, episode 2?
Oh yes, when we did an overrated games episode in which I was the unsuspecting victim of this exact idea. Yes, I still have the cold sweats and the nightmares.
These games, but my games aren't overrated. They're underrated. All of your games are overrated.
Ooh, yeah, because you talked to me about it. That was what was tough. You know, I guess we'll talk more about the process when we get into that. But man, wasn't it tough to like there's just so many different voices. Like, do you listen to board games?
Joe,
the Bellwether?
It was so easy because all I did is I looked on my shelf and went, what 5 games should I play within you guys, especially Joe, that would just be a marathon of endurance? Be like, okay, I got through that one. Okay, what you got next, TC? I got this. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, TC, what the heck? And then the other guy's like, okay, this one has dice. This one has dice. This one has 4 components. This one's got, yeah.
That's what I did. I was like, here's what I did. I looked at my game shelf and went, which games did I enjoy bringing into a game night that was just all clones of me? That I would never bring to an actual game night because Joe and others would roast it.
Yeah. So just like I'm like the Grinch at the end of your story. It's like I'm always sitting there like, Jesus Christ.
Joe Salin is the Grinch that stole fun.
Grinch that stole fun at game night.
No, he's just like the. Well, actually, Joe's more like the pinata stick, and not the pinata. I'm like, hit me. You might get candy, you might not. You don't know what you're gonna get when you crack me open.
Simply the instrument. No volition at all. I just like the weapon is being wielded. You guys came up with these games just for me. I can't wait.
I didn't, but it might look like I did.
Oh man.
I may have possibly encouraged Andy to put one game on his list just
to be fair, that one was in consideration almost immediately as well. Number 1 took me all of 2 seconds to figure out.
Okay, let's get through our reviews.
Yeah, we get into these reviews now. Let's go ahead and kick it off with let's hear from you, Trent, because this is an update on our last episode to a certain extent. With TC, we talked about this precise digital implementation of a board game. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay, so I wasn't on last week's episode. I intended to kind of jointly review this with TC last week, but I wasn't able to be on, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit on my own, having not actually heard what TC said last week. I don't know. So we'll see whether or not our reviews on the game overlap. I'm going to talk about the Lord of the Rings, the living card game, which is on early access on Steam, so you can play it on the PC now. And since it's an implementation of one of my favorite actual physical tabletop games, I thought it'd be fun to talk about. Because this is not really the same thing, But honestly, most of what it does could be a tabletop game. It could be a card game quite easily. So it's intending to, like I said, be a re-implementation of sorts of the Lord of the Rings living card game that Fantasy Flight has published. But there's some differences. Mostly, it's like the card game. You assemble a deck of cards and you're playing against a scenario of some sorts. But it feels, it's the rules-wise, I think it's a little simpler than the normal card game on the table. The game manages, I think it's because the game manages a lot of the game mechanical details for you. But the feeling I get when I play it is that it feels a lot like Hearthstone. I can't escape the fact that it feels like Hearthstone every time I'm playing it. Except, I think it's a little more complex than Hearthstone. The big difference that I like about it versus Hearthstone, I feel like Hearthstone is a way better comparison than the actual physical card game for this. But the thing I like about this versus Hearthstone, this is the reason I actually enjoy playing this more than Hearthstone, is that rather than doing all your actions on your turn, and then your opponent does a bunch of actions, and then you do a bunch of actions, you're alternating the actions. And you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until both players have passed, and then both players get more resources and you do it again. When I say both players, you're actually just playing against an AI. There's not yet any sort of PvP, and I don't know that there ever will be. There's supposedly a co-op mode coming. I don't know if there ever will be, but whatever. So basically, you're playing these scenarios against an AI, and the AI is actually making some choices in terms of what they do, mostly in terms of which of your characters that you have out that they attack. So you have to start the game with 3 heroes in play, and you're bringing out allies to fight alongside them. They have some bad guys out, and you're fighting each other. You're choosing who's going to attack who. Both sides have a few cards they can play that are like event cards that cause certain game effects to happen. And the bad guy has, I think it's called, I can't remember the term, but it's basically like a
Sauron, I think is what they're calling it.
Oh, what?
The enemy player, the enemy AI.
Yeah.
They call it Sauron.
What is the name of the version of the locations? Is basically like a quest. You have to go through and put 6 points of questing on it. I can't remember what they.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the guy. It's like this yellow resource you can throw on it. Yeah.
Yeah, they have it's like they take the ideas from the card game and some mess with the words of it a little bit. But basically, the idea is you have to quest against these objectives that they have in play. They might even call them objectives. And so your guys are all either attacking bad enemies like spiders and such, or you're utilizing them for the turn to go quest against these objectives. And so basically your goal is to keep your guys alive by killing off enemies and also spending some of their time going for these objectives. These objectives generally, while they're in play, are giving the bad guy some benefit, and you're trying to get rid of them. Once you've gotten rid of the objective and managed to keep all your guys alive, you go on to the next stage, which basically just means more bad guys. The ways the scenarios vary is the kind of different effects that Sauron, who's the bad guy, can have. Sometimes he's really aggressive with attacking. Some of the time he's doing draining your threat, which basically means there's a threat meter that once it starts pretty low and it gradually goes up throughout the game. When it gets to 50, you ought to lose. Sometimes he's doing really just direct damage to your heroes. If your 3 heroes die, you lose. There's a lot of ways to lose in this game.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really reminds me of Arkham Horror, where we have that threat meter where if you hit it, it's too bad, you lose.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to lose in this game. It feels very grindy. Like you go in and you play a scenario and you pound through it and you get most of the way through it and you die. And then you go through it and you try it again and you die. Then you tweak your deck and you go through it again, you die. Then eventually you figure out this is the thing I need to be doing to make it through this quest, and you win. But then you still only win some of the time. And then the reward for winning is you get some of these Valor points. And you spend these Valor points to unlock more cards. And gradually what happens is that your deck gets better and better until it can really just smash the scenario. And by that point, you've unlocked another scenario, and you go play it, and so on and so forth. And there's these adventures that are basically a sequence of so many scenarios. The first one has 5 in it. And when you get all the way through all those, then you can go on to another quest. Basically, it's just like you're basically playing a different versions of Sauron that do very different things, so your deck has to be different for each adventure, which ends up in that part making it feel like Lord of the Rings the card game. The issue I have with this game is this. One, it's grindy as heck. It's really, really, really grindy. Unless you're going to throw money at this game for micro purchases to buy a bunch of points, you're going to have to play the basic scenarios over and over and over again to get enough Valor points to basically buy new interesting scenarios to play, or buy new cards within the game with the in-game points, or they're called Valor points. So you have to either throw some money at it or grind. I don't like that. That's something that bothers me. I just want to, if I've beaten this scenario, I want to go back and choose to play it again on my own terms if I want to. Not that I have to keep playing it to get a new scenario to play against or to get new cards to play with. Just unlock all the cards, unlock a bunch of scenarios. I don't even mind if I have to beat a scenario to go to the next one. That's great. Sure. But I shouldn't have to play the scenario over and over and over and over and over again to unlock more stuff. That's a bad thing. And it seems like, I will say, that in the most recent updates, they've kind of undone that. It's going to move to a situation where you're mostly able to unlock the content, beat one scenario, you unlock the next one. They're moving to that and mostly using the Valor points for cards, but this is an alpha, so they keep changing how this is going to work. So it's really hard to specifically comment on how that's going to turn out with the final game, but I think they're being nudged by very bad feedback in a better direction, I think. But it's really hard. Again, it's really hard to tell because this is an alpha release. This is an early release game.
So they're being nudged in a better direction by very bad feedback, right?
Yes, very bad feedback, because the initial game of this was grind.
Yeah, the initial release of this, I mean, I fired it up and was like, holy cow, man. You're either going to throw money at this thing, and you couldn't even really grind because each quest, we only got one to begin with. Because you had a campaign, and each campaign I think is 5 quests. Is how they're, and you got one quest and part of the campaign, which is 5 quests, and there was $2 or 3,750 Valor points, right? Yeah. Plus they had hero decks, which was 1 hero card and 4 various cards that match that character for $2 or 3,700 Valor points. So when you did a quest, initially you could only do it once. You couldn't do it over and over and over again.
You do it once a day.
If you did it once and you did it again, and then you would have this, it would reduce how much Valor you got.
Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah, go ahead.
The way it originally worked was the first time you did a particular quest in a day and beat it, you got 100 Valor points or something like that. And the second time you did it in a day, it'd be 60 or 50, and the next time you did it would be 30. I don't remember the exact numbers, but
the first time I did one and I actually started getting good, I was getting close to 250. And
I don't remember the number, but that was the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
go ahead.
And so then what they did was they got all this feedback. I mean, like I said before, it went on Steam. We got these mixed reviews and 57% positive rating, and they went back and they opened up the quest completely for free. Everybody who spent money on the quest got a return of investment on their Valor points. They got rid of the daily limit on the quest reward, so you could do it over and over again if you wanted to. And the biggest problem, did you play it this weekend, Trent?
Yes.
Yeah, I was playing it this weekend, and I was having issues out the wazoo just trying to connect to play the game.
Yeah, their servers are having issues over the weekend. I don't know whether it's getting more popular or what, but
yeah, I mean,
there were times over the weekend where it was not good.
Yeah, well,
so you have to be always connected to this to play it?
Yeah, you have to be online. Yes, yeah. It does require an online connection to play.
Dude, geez, these are lots of strikes, it seems.
But here's the thing. I will say this. When you're actually playing the game and you're away from all this, it's pretty fun. I enjoy actually playing a quest, specifically when it's a new quest that I haven't figured out yet. That's a lot of fun. But the problem is that really, I mean, there's only 5 quests in the game to this point that make up one campaign. And once you kind of beat it, I mean, your only option is to go back and try it again. And basically, you raise your winning percentage.
Yeah.
So...
Trent, I don't think I caught exactly what you said there. I think there was a little bit of a cutout, but
okay. So the game is fun when you're trying to figure out how to beat a new quest. that part of the game is really fun. When you beat it once and you're going back and figuring out how to beat it again or beat it more consistently, that's still fun. Mm-hmm. The game gets bad when you have to repeatedly grind for more valor points. That's bad. And if they do anything where you have to pay to unlock stuff, that's going to be horrible. I'm glad they've undone that for the moment. It's like there's good pieces here, but they're surrounded by a bunch of weird decisions. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it with this. There's a good game in here, but it's surrounded by a bunch of questionable decisions by Asmodee Digital. That's kind of my review. I think if they figure this out in terms of like what their monetization of it is going to be and make it a little more friendly, I'd probably recommend it. But I don't know that I'm going to recommend it because they don't seem to have that figured out very well yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you make the cost of the actual content like really reasonable and then make it extremely unreasonable to unlock if you want to not pay money, then I kind of understand that. Like some people might be willing to do that, and it lowers that entry, because the biggest thing about making your game free to play with this sort of unlockable in-app purchases is that it gets everybody to download it without there being like any overhead at all. So I mean, like I'm weird about this one because it's like you have to buy the game. It costs a pretty significant amount compared to like other tabletop apps. Like I mean, I would say about the most I've paid for an app is the Through the Ages app, the new one, and I'm like, that's $10, but it was such a fantastic investment for me that it didn't feel that bad. This one is like $8 for the cheapest thing you can get, and then you now they've got the first quest unlocked, but like, so Trent, the rest of that content there, could you buy it if you wanted to?
Originally, you could pay to advance. That was originally basically how you advanced, is you paid for it. Now it's like the first full campaign is unlocked, but you kind of got to beat each scenario to unlock the next one. Okay,
well that makes sense. I mean, it's just progression.
Yeah, it's normal progression. That's completely fine. I'm glad that they're moving away from paying for the content. The thing is, I think what they're going to move to is making it so that you have to have certain cards in order to progress, and then they'll put those certain cards behind paywall. I think that's where they're going with this, and I don't know yet because the game's like it's got one campaign and I've unlocked all of it, so I don't really know.
Well, why wouldn't they just do like you just buy the next campaign or something? Like I guess
because this is not a final release. This is like an alpha of the game.
Oh, and they're charging money though?
Yeah.
You're paying it
a lot of
early
games
access.
doing that lately.
Okay, early access.
You're like paying to be a beta tester.
That doesn't line up with me.
Yeah, this is not a final release of the game. This is like early access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say, I first downloaded this and I was looking at it, Trent, and verbatim, I was just blown away by how much money they wanted you to throw at this thing. And yeah, I knew that before I even paid the $8 to download it, to try it out. But I've been really impressed with their feedback they're getting, the changes they're making. They're doing a daily Twitter stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is great for me because it's my lunchtime at work and I can just start watching it. They are taking their feedback seriously. They know that they seem to know that this Lord of the Rings license has a dedicated base to it, and it's they've got to do it right. So they are listening to feedback. So I'm optimistic by where this is going. I am enjoying it tremendously when it's working. I've got two decks built that just use starter and common cards, and they're really effective on the base quests. So and they're tweaking what cards do and stuff. So I'm in for this one for the long haul. I'm curious to see where it goes and what they do with it.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Trent and TC. Good to hear an update, because it sounds like you've been playing a little bit more.
Oh, God, I've been playing. Oh, yeah. I've been playing this thing quite a bit.
I stick with what I said. Once you actually get into actually playing the game, particularly when you're figuring out the scenarios for the first time, it is a lot of fun. My issues with it mostly are how they're going to monetize it.
Yeah, and I would agree 100% with that. But yeah, the music's great. The voice acting's cool. Actually, you know, for a little story quest, I went the first one is just you're running down Bilbo, who was captured by spiders.
Yeah.
For such a basic thing, it's actually kind of engaging at points. It's got like a point branches where like you choose to trust this character or not, and you have to choose. So you got a little, you know, it kind of reminds me of like the potential I saw with Arkham Horror, the card game, with that crappy base campaign game that came with the box. You're like, yeah, I can see where this could go, but I don't know right now.
All right, well, TC, since you're on the mic there, why not tell us a little bit about a card game?
Okay, this is going to kind of tie in. This is really going to tie into our topic because.
Oh well, crud, man! Do you want me to go and then?
Yeah, go ahead and go. I just kind of picked this. It's funny because
I was going to kind of do that, but I was like, man, I feel like I made you go last week or something.
Oh no, so, I don't mind. I can go last.
Sure.
You know.
Well, I mean, going last, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something I was doing consistently because I was showing you how I really feel.
Okay, well, as long as we got that out in the open, or we got that out of the way, we can move on. I'm good with that.
All right, well, I will be reviewing then. The new release, I think Trent was thinking of reviewing it. I think you may have said a few words about Trade on the Tigris by Jeff Engelstein and Ryan Sturm, the guys behind Ludology podcast. Trent, did you give an early review of that?
Of which one?
Trade on the Tigris.
I don't know if I reviewed it or not. I remember talking about it, but I don't remember if I reviewed it.
Well, that's yeah. Maybe it was a tweet that I'm remembering because
I tweeted about it, but I don't know if I've talked about it on here.
Okay, so let me tell you guys about Trade on the Tigris as though you've never heard of this game before. It's the new release from Tasty Minstrel Games, and it is a trading on the Mediterranean game, but kind of like a tongue-in-cheek reference to that. Most trading on the Mediterranean games tend to be Euro games, and this is kind of a twist on the Euro genre by being a real-time trading game where you are actually trading goods in your hand for goods in other players' hands. It's kind of like if you like the trading element of Catan, that's pretty much the game here. But it's not the only thing going on because, you know, you need something to be trading for. And here, it's a Civ game. It is a simple Civ game where you're trying to trade to be in the correct places, to be pushing your civilization further in the direction towards either dictatorship or democracy for your government. The more you get in either direction, the more advanced you become and the better access to development cards that you have, which are kind of like your technologies, which is what adds the Civ flavor to this game. On the other side, you are trading for religion because there's two different religions you can go towards, and kind of the more you go in one direction, the better access, the better cards, the more powerful cards you can get to. If you can get to the very sweet spot of being in the level 3 of any of those aforementioned governments and religions, you can draw from a deck of 6 unique cards that are just fantastic. Every time you draw in this game, you're always drawing from a shuffled deck. You'll draw 2 cards, pick one, go on. Not a huge choice, really. Sometimes you draw 2 of the same card and you don't even have any choice at all. But like this gives a really simple way of making the Civ game layered on top of a simple trading game by which you are forced to be truthful about what type of good you're trading, but not forced to be truthful about what that good comes with. Think of this as like not being able to predict what happens when 2 cultures contact each other, meaning that you might be trading for a bunch of barley, but that barley comes with a leaning towards democracy. And that might seem a little bit strange, but it's really cool to be sort of overlaying the civilization aspects of religion and government onto a simple trading game where you really want to get sets. If you liked the real-time trading element of Millennium Blades, I think that you're going to find that Trade on the Tigris is almost like a spiritual successor. And I would say that I would much prefer Trade on the Tigris to Millennium Blades simply because the game of Millennium Blades, like the game in a game, the meta game, the sort of like the game that you play while you're playing the game, the collectible card game that you're meta gaming about, I don't think it's very entertaining. I think that it's okay, but it's pretty simple. It kind of just seems to be pushing you towards wanting to do a specific thing and get other cards that combo with that. Here in Trade on the Tigris, you really have limited control over what direction you're headed in terms of the developments you actually get. But the decks that you're drawing from, you do have control over, or at least some elements of control over. And I think that there's just a lot of replayability because of the fact that like there's so few of these really powerful cards. There's some really cool, very diverse technologies. The 2 religions kind of represent a sort of order versus violence or war. I don't know. It's like the one one religion tends to be more like about controlling via non-violent means, but like, you know, sort of just pulling the strings. And the other religion is more about just like igniting holy war. And there's some super powerful, very impactful technologies that really, like, you know, they reverberate around the entire table. And everything is extremely interesting, or I don't say interesting, extremely easy to explain. The game almost runs itself once you get going. There's two things that you're trying to collect tokens for, and they function like opposite things of the same thing. The culture tokens will trigger a golden age and then force you to discard most of them. And the barbarian tokens will trigger a negative point loss, like a raid on you, and then you'll lose all of them. But it's like you're trying to sort of get rid of the barbarian tokens while collect as many culture tokens. It's a very cool system that I think forces players to be competing with each other and choosing whether or not that's a battle that's really worth fighting. But really, like, just at its core, the trading in this game has a nice like element of unpredictability to the way that it's pushing you in different directions. But I really think the game here is about getting yourself into those really nice, expensive, or I don't say expensive, but difficult to obtain level 2 and level 3 cards. And because that's an element that other players don't have to be honest about, and that you're trying to like collect as many of the same good as you can, but you know that like if you've got the 2 of this good that push you toward dictatorship, if somebody's trading to you, you're not going to get pushed further in that direction if that's where you want to go. So I mean, it's like it's tough. It's like you know, you're trading to try to get a set, but then the game balances well. And my first game of this, I was kind of disappointed because I thought like, oh, it's just about set collecting. But I didn't realize how truly powerful. Like in both games I've played, the person who's won has been the person who was able to best manipulate their position on a track to get into the level 3s. Trent, that was you in the first game that we played. And so I wonder what your take is on trade on the Tigris.
It didn't feel like Millennium Blaze to me. It felt more like a lighter version of Sidereal Confluence.
Okay.
It's has a timed trading period where you're basically trading cards to try to get sets that unlock, basically end up unlocking abilities for you. The more effective you are at doing certain types of trades, the better abilities you can unlock. I personally like Sidereal Confluence better, but the problem with Sidereal Confluence is it's much more of a bear to teach and it takes longer. So it's harder to get to the table. So this is kind of like a version of Sidereal Confluence that might actually see the table sometimes. I tend to like real-time trading games. I think that's a mechanism that I enjoy quite a bit. I like the wheeling and dealing of it. And I think this Trade on the Tigris does that really well. It's just it's a lighter version of a game that I like very much. That's kind of sums it up. I did not feel Millennium Blades nearly as much as I felt Sidereal Confluence while playing it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there were elements to Sidereal Confluence that I think are in Trade on the Tigris, like things that you must trade away to be able to use. Like other players can use it, you can't. You get like resources like that. So I agree, Trent. That is definitely a comparison. Now, I've played way less Sidereal Confluence, and I had weird, like, you know, I'd say obstacles that I need to overcome to really keep playing it, just because of how, like you said, how tough it is to teach, how long it is to play. Well, I mean, it's kind of long, but like, and then how many players you really need to get the best experience out of it. So it's weird. It's like long, big, takes a lot to teach. But Trade on the Tigris, it's really easy to get players going. Like I had a player I had no idea what games this player had played, and like was able to easily understand what was going on. First experience that they had, they'd never played Settlers of Catan before, and they learned how to play Trade on the Tigris and did just fine. I would say one more thing I didn't mention. This has the trade on like Tigris and Euphrates. It has that like the real historical, like very primitive civilization history in much more detail than I have seen in really many other games, period. Like take like Sid Meier's Advanced Civilization, which is one of the trading in that game sort of inspired Trade on the Tigris. And I think they really fleshed out that sort of technology, like the technologies available, the different like religions and stuff. There's a lot of more to sink your teeth into here, history and civilization wise, than you expect from this ancient time period. So it's one that I don't know if I would ever want. I don't know what you would get from this, Andy, but I think TC, this could be really cool for you to try.
Yeah, it sounds very intriguing. I'll have to look into it.
Andy, hold out for Sidereal Confluence. It's the one you'd like better. I'm just telling you.
I second that. I agree. I would rather play Sidereal Confluence with Andy than I would play this one. So that was my review of Trade on the Tigris. And now moving along, we will get to Andy's review, which is going to be an update. The most recent currently playable edition of a game that should be coming up on Kickstarter pretty soon.
Yeah, if all goes well. So yeah, Joe was at Gen Con and met up with a person we had as a guest on our podcast, Raymond Chandler III, who is making the game City of the Big Shoulders. We had him on kind of in those early stages, and I made a print and play of an early prototype. And we played that a few times, and we all thought, yeah, there's a really good game here. And there was just kind of, those rough edges you get in any of these design projects. Joe met him at Gen Con this last year, and Raymond gave him kind of a more recent stage prototype. I've been kind of communicating with him back and forth about different things about it. And while not everything is quite like the same as what it's going to be in the final Kickstarter release, the main gist is pretty close. And so here's kind of some changes they've made, and I would say, for my money, all the changes are positive. First of all, like in the other prototype, they would have these factory extensions where you could make your company bigger. They kind of took those out and incorporated that into other areas of the game. So overall, and I don't want to go into a huge amount of detail, but this is basically an 18xx style economy where you have shares and you have a stock market, blah 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 blah, attached to a Euro game with resource management and worker placement. And I think it's probably done the best of any game I've seen that's tried to do that, as well as I would say in a Euro game setting, this is the best implementation of a stock market I've ever seen, in that you actually feel like it's a stock market and not I'm buying my points. Because at the end, what your stock's worth and your money on hand is how you win the game, like you would an 18xx game. So he's taken out these kind of factory extensions, which kind of always seemed hard to afford. And by the time you got them, you kind of wondered if it was worth it or not. And then what he did was incorporate those abilities into other things. So you can get these capital assets that can make your company better. Some can have it, some can't. What's really cool that makes this different from an 18xx, though, is most 18xx games, you get your company, you run your company. But for the most part, like in a train game, the companies are not often asymmetric from each other. They're only asymmetric in terms of where they start on the board. However, in City of the Big Shoulders, the companies are asymmetric. They have different payouts for their goods. They have, you can hire managers, and in the original prototype, having a manager just kind of lets you get a free cube to do your production, so it made it easier to do production. In this version now, assuming I played it right, which by the rules I think I did, the managers give you special bonuses. So sometimes it might be a cube, sometimes it might be an appeal bonus. And the neat thing is the manager's ability triggers at the end of that factory area's run. So, if you were going to run the first factory of your company and your bonuses get an extra cube, you can't do that bonus until that individual factory is run, but then you get the bonus and you can use that cube when the next factory runs. So you got to kind of do a little bit more planning ahead like that. I also felt like there was a little bit more capital injected into the game. And what I mean by that is it often felt like in the first prototype, you were always struggling to do what you wanted to do with your company. It never felt like you had enough money to do it. Whereas in this one, I feel like, yeah, you still got to manage your money, but you can do a whole lot more with it. You can really kind of get that company up and running. They also added, which is nice, because a big part of a lot of 18xx games is you can buy in private companies to pull money out of your company into your own pocket. Well, there's nothing really like that in City of the Big Shoulders, but now he added a space where you can do that. So every time you put a worker on the space, you pull $100 out of your company to you. And so, can you do that? And I think there's a real strategy to that, because I noticed at near the end of the game, like my companies were pretty rich. Like they were making a good amount of money. So putting your workers here to pull out money would be a good way to flesh out your portfolio. The other big thing that they added, which I am a big fan of, is the biggest issue we always had with the original prototype was how to handle the worker placement phase, because it was kind of weird. You go through this situation where it was all about how much people liked your company. And then when you got to worker placement, it was start with this person, go around the table. And it kind of always felt clunky. We kept trying to come up with like variants to make it work a little better. He's added in basically just a dynamic turn order track to it. So you can see the turn order that's coming. And if you want to change that, there's a spot that's basically take first player, up your appeal. So you can change it that way. Overall, I would say every change I saw was a good improvement on what was already a pretty decent game. Honestly, I know they're in the tweaking phase and they're changing a few things about how information is handled. But honestly and truly, if I had what I have right now in my box, I would consider that a perfectly awesome game to own and play it. So it can only really, in my mind, get better from what's going on. And it's a lot of fun if you like that. Like I had a couple kind of newbies to our game group playing this, and one of them was, I think he hasn't played a lot of economic games yet. He had a blast. He's like, I don't even care if I'm winning. I'm having a great time running my company. And the rules are set up in a nice way too. Like you can make it much more of a heavy economic game, or you can kind of tone it down to where it's a little lighter. I think he's designing it basically to be like the perfect bridge between a Euro game and an 18xx game. And I think if that's his overall goal for this game, he's succeeding quite well at it. Yeah, it's really enjoyable, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what those final tweaks are going to be and how that's going to be playing out. Remember, I don't think we ever played with this, but they had the Great Depression rule. Mm-hmm. I am never now not going to play with that. Oh my God, it was so awesome. Because it was like crash and burn. Like we were like, round 3 and 4, you're like making money. This is good. And then that deck ran out, and oh God, like my stock didn't go anywhere after that. It was crash and burn hardcore. So that made it a lot more interesting. You really had to try and accelerate and make your money quick at the beginning, because if you play the long game, you know that the long game is going to be really, really hard to pull that off. I also made some stupid moves just trying stupid things, because I had played it 3 or 4 times and both people playing it were new. So I just I wonder if this is a good idea. Turns out, no, it really wasn't. But anyway, yeah, keep a lookout if you like economic games and you want a game with a good stock market, but you're a Euro gamer. This is really the way to go. I love Arkwright, and I think Arkwright's a heavier, nastier game than this is, but Arkwright's stock market is like every other Euro game stock market. City of the Big Shoulders, you're playing a Euro game with an actual stock market mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool, man. I look forward to getting to try this new updated version. It sounds like some things have been tightened and other systems have been fleshed out to make it so that you've got interesting decisions and compelling moments throughout the entire game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And like I said, we were playing the slightly more advanced, slightly nastier version, which of course is going to appeal to me more, but you can make it nicer if you want.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks, Andy. That was an update on City of the Big Shoulder. So go check that one out when that hits Kickstarter sometime in the near future, if that sounds cool to you.
I think it's supposed to be 2018, but I'm not quite sure where within that.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, it's only Q4, right? So, but it should be sometime soon. I think it was going to be in the next month or two.
Right.
All right. Well, TC, now it's yours.
That's my turn. Okay. Well, I took my daughter out to the local game store to try some games because it was Monday. It was Labor Day. Carissa was started having the kids in the house, so I volunteered to take one of them out. So we went out, and plus I wanted to see what big Labor Day sales were going on and whatnot and see what's going on. And by the way, if you're talking to someone with a large game collection and they're trying to convince you they're blowing out a game and they're asking a ridiculous price, by the way, that's not blowing out the game. So we went and we played. We went to our favorite little gaming corner, and we got to play 2 plays of Disney's villainous, weird little cool mini or not game called Gizmo, I think is what it was. Okay. It just got like a demo copy and just came in. And we got in a game called the T-Dragon Society card game. And I think this is going to segue very well into our topic because it's a game that honestly, when we were looking at it, I knew some people that I usually game with over there. They're like, yeah, it's an okay game. You know, it's just nothing. We didn't like it. It was too simple and it was basically being dismissed. Which for good reason it is. I mean, it is a very simplistic deck building game. But the kicker is that what drove my daughter to it was that it's got really cute artwork. It's based on a graphic novel, which apparently is really good. The one person I was talking to is like, yeah, the reason she played the game was because she liked the graphic novels. And what really surprised me at this one, especially when I tell you about this, Joe, is that I know, Joe, that me and you, when it comes to deck building games, I know that deck building games always struggle with theme in particular. I mean, they usually have good mechanics, but the theme is like always never there. I mean, Thunderstone tried, but it was, you can say like, yeah, this is just Dominion. And Dominion, as we know, is just, you don't care what the theme is or what the artwork, you're just executing the text on the cards, and it's an efficiency game. This one actually executes the theme very well because you are deck building. You start with a starting deck of cards, and you're flipping these cards one at a time. And your deck's completely open. You don't have a hand of cards in this game. You like flip it over and it says, "Oh, I'm grooming my dragon." Okay, flip over it, and then if it's like a particular, it's like this is your first type of card you can draw again. So you're flipping over this card, like it's grooming your dragon sleeping, and and your dragons are named after tea. So I was playing ginseng. And Kate was playing Jasmine, right? And the artwork is adorable in this thing. It is, oh my goodness. It is the biggest selling point of this game is this artwork. It is, and even the rule book, they got the artist to like do the rule book in like a comic book fashion with the characters talking about how to play the game. It's fantastic.
But then dragons and tea, like literal tea.
Yeah, it's dragon. Yeah, it's like the tea dragons.
I've seen this one on Twitter.
Yeah, it's a renegade game. I guess I should mention that. It plays like 2 to 4 really well. But yeah, you're buying cards. There's like this market you can get, just like in Ascension or Star Realms, where you can you pay your cards, you discard it, but the card you buy actually goes into your tableau. You don't discard it at will, which is kind of nice. And you're trying to get enough lead points to buy a season card, and there's 4 seasons. There's spring, summer, fall, and winter, and they're memories, right? So you're trying to make memories with your dragon while you're trying to take care of your dragon, right? And then at the end of the game, since the memories are victory points, whoever has the best memories wins the game. Very simple, very straightforward. But I tell you what, it grabbed Kate like nothing I ever saw. She spent her own money to buy it, and we've played it quite a bit. And it's nothing I would break out with you guys. I mean, it's like, oh, look, it's like the best every game. But for what it is, it has a great theme. It executes it well. It's a good $20 purchase, and it's a great entry point for gamers into deck building, and it was fantastic for what it is. But every review I read on it was like, it's too simple. I think it's like 6.5 on Board Game Geek, something low. Because when I looked at it to buy, I'm like, I don't know, Kate, this has got like a 6.7. I'm not sure, but they had the demo cup. We tried it out, and we were very pleasantly surprised by it. And can hook kids in. I mean, I'm telling you what, after playing this, it's not going to be hard to reach for Dominion to get Kate to play it. So very high marks for this one. Like I said, it's a very simple. The artwork, the theme works, the mechanics work. It all fits together. It plays. It doesn't outstay its welcome at 20 to 30 minutes. It was a very pleasant surprise, and plus, I didn't have to buy it. My daughter did. and we're going to a game day on Saturday, and she's got this thing already packed. She even has her own shelf now of games that she's bought, and that's like right next to Dungeon Pets, right? Just right there. So yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. Are there poop cubes?
There are no poop cubes in this game.
No.
I am, and honestly, it'd probably be a game that we were talking about games that they'd be like, "Hey guys, if we ever get together, like, hey, Kate wants to show you this game. All right, here we go. It's the start of the marathon of games to see how long it takes before my podcast friends break." But it's enjoyable. I think it hits its target audience very well, and it's a good game. It's not going to blow anything away, but games that get my children, younger people to play, I'm all for. So
yeah, I'll totally play it over Exploding Kittens.
Yeah, and you got some kids, Andy and Trent, and I would recommend trying this one with them and see what they think, because I think they'd really like it.
Yeah,
I think TC, this is like, it's like they just nailed it with the theme for Kate. It's like if you can combine something that's like got teeth and something something scary, fire breathing, something intense and fantastic, and then tea. And
my wife loves tea. It was like a perfect fit. I'm like, okay, I got Carissa who likes all these teas, my daughter who likes dragons, I'm like, and me who likes gaming. I'm like, bam, win. Yeah. Only person left out is Liam at this point, but he's 8. Well,
I can see having just a fantastic experience in that sort of an environment where how much your wife is a fan of tea specifically. That your daughter just loves the combination of cute and horrible.
Yeah.
Like your daughter, like Snake Kitty. I'm learning more and more. That's like her spirit animal.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Like the bad things about being a dragon, like it bites you, right? And so you have to lose some stuff, right? So you're a happy dragon, you're petting him, you're grooming his happy, then he just flips out on you and he bites you and you lose some cards. I'm like, what? Bad dragon.
Yeah. Nice. I think the people I've seen who are rating it positively, are just totally buying into that theme and concept, and then people that are more mechanics first are the ones that are crapping on it.
Yeah. But yeah, give it a shot. I can definitely recommend this one, especially at the price point. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Very cool, man. All right, well, let's just keep on rolling as you tell us maybe you can go ahead and kick us off here. Maybe telling us, we've already explained a little bit of what we're going to be doing right now with the meat of our topic tonight is we've each come up with a list of 5 games. Maybe actually, TC, I think you went into how you made yours, but would you sum that up, and then we can maybe say how we came up with our lists?
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. So we came up with this topic. Trent, if you've listened earlier, Trent came up with it, and of course I just jumped all over. I'm like, oh, you want to talk about games like that you guys can just poop all over, essentially, right? Trent, I mean, that was the gist of it from,
Kind of, yeah. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a joke that's what we do all the time without making that our topic. It's like we just crap on each other's games.
And so I was like, oh my goodness, I've got games in my collection that would be perfect for this. That games that I like that just people just it just drives them. Just looking at it, they're like, no, never again. And so I approached this list basically like games that I like bringing out that always get some kind of negative comment no matter what they are. And games that I figured that would be a challenge for you guys to play and actually keep a straight face and make it through the game, right? And it was easy stuff like random dice stuff for Joe, for Andy it'd be something that kind of has an economic engine but not really. For Trent, I don't know with Trent, you're such an enigma. I just threw something out there to see because I saw your list. I'm like, there's one game on here I had no idea even existed, so that'll be interesting. But there's
do you have Hunger Game training days?
I do not, but I
That would have got Trigger.
You can make a case for that game. I would love it.
I do have Splendor. I do have
You
Splendor.
can put that down.
But then you guys started chiming in. I looked at Trent. I was like, oh yeah, there's 2 in there. I definitely can just start ripping on. And Andy, I was like, well, that's easy. I just say one publisher's a pile of garbage, and that takes care of half the list.
Oh yeah. Well, when this original topic was brought up, it's like, what games are hard to get people to play and that they run from when you bring out? I'm like, that's like 2/3 of my collection.
And at some point, you gotta go, was it the games or me, right? So you don't know where this line of demarcation actually hits.
It's like, do you want to play?
A really sweet guy, so it's definitely the games.
Oh yeah, you're like, come on, guys, this is only a 3-hour train game. Where are you going?
Yeah. And I figured it'd be a lot of fun because, there wasn't I like being part of this podcast and in general, just because we have a lot of fun just poking at each other and just generally having a good time. Yeah. So I just randomly submitted 5 games, and I set this avalanche of a Facebook storm with you guys, and all of a sudden it's like, bah, 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 like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a good episode. So that's kind of the genesis of this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I just kind of I had a hard time making my list. Maybe I should say how I made mine, because maybe for you guys it was easy, but for me it was like, man, who am I looking for that's going to not play this? This is one that I'm like, I get out of the game night and I'm worried that, somebody new to gaming is not going to want to play it. Because that's what I think Andy means when he says 2/3 of his collection is let me sell this to somebody who's never heard of it. This game only takes 4 to 6 hours, and that's if the monopoly is not revoked. See if the monopoly.
And it only takes half a case of poker chips, right?
The game came with money, but I don't use that. I use these poker chips over here, which, by the way, you know what all of the denominations are by color, right? Okay, good, because you're gonna need.
Did you bring a calculator or is your cell phone charged?
For my list, it was a mixture between trying to troll you guys and also trying to troll just in general the response that I feel that I get whenever I've tried to pull this out to what I would consider maybe less intense people, but that are also gamers. It's one that I feel like I've got a lot of rejection with. So maybe that's games that have a history of rejection, or at least have some sort of a case that you can point to that they've been publicly rejected or been denounced. And I think what's kind of interesting about my perception of what people say is that it's weird. It's and I'm going to straight up just say, I think that there's Board Game Geek is this really loud but really collective voice that is it's very difficult to argue with the community, because it's the entire community is behind any sort of a rating. But then I think there are people who sort of speak up as loud, standing up voices in the crowd that are that meta whatever average geek rating is not my rating. Hashtag not my rating.
Hashtag not my rating.
So the thing is, I feel like there's the loudest voices in board gaming right now are people that are actually sort of counter to the general stream. So it's do I go against the stream and just choose something that's really low on Board Game Geek? Do I go against the loudest voices in gaming? Do I do it more personal and just choose games that I know are going to make you guys upset? And I tried to do a mixture of all those things, but it was tough to come up with this list because I felt like a lot of different impacting factors. It took me an hour to come up with 5 games. So
it took me 5 minutes. I knew exactly what I was going to do.
I do think for my collection, I think if I
think I was about right there too, about 5 minutes.
Trent,
that probably says something about both our gaming collections compared to
no kidding,
Trent, was this one pretty easy for you to come up with?
Absolutely.
All right. I was the only one struggling.
No time at all. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off then with TC, the man of the hour, who was the first person to come up with his list. So first come, first serve. Go ahead, TC.
All right, we'll start with my number 5. My number 5 is a game by Eric Lang, published by WizKids, called Trains and Stations. Trains and Stations is a rail building game with a really unique twist that Joe would absolutely love, and that is you roll dice. Yes,
Yay!
There is dice in the train game. That is the anathema of every train game economic person, is that you put randomness in it and they just go up the wall. I really like this game. I do have issues with it. There are some component issues that hold it back. Not near as bad as another game that will appear on this list, but the board is literally half as big as it needs to be. The cards are beyond the Hobbit small cards you see in Fantasy Flight games. It's WizKids, so you know the component quality is kind of iffy at best, and the little buildings you put out are like almost microscopic, but there is a decent amount of strategy in it. I like playing it. It's got a solid design. It is designed by Eric Lang. I enjoy playing it. My biggest trouble is I bring it out and I say, hey, who wants to play a train game? Yay, let's play a train game. And that usually divides into two groups. We have the Ticket to Ride group and the 18XX group. This satisfies neither, because it is a completely different beast on its own. I actually got it for like $5 on a blowout sale up at Rainy Day Games. I brought it home. My wife hated me. She goes, "Why did you pay $5 on a dice train game by WizKids when you knew the components of another dice game I will mention later in this podcast?"
Oh boy, spoiler alert.
But it's a solid game. I really enjoy it. I don't know if I enjoy it more just bringing it out to watch people cringe, or I enjoy the gameplay, or just doing a bait and switch saying, hey, I got an Eric Lang game. And everybody's like, oh, it's Rising Sun. No, it's Trains and Stations, you know. But
Andy appreciates that. That makes me smile as well. I've noticed, TC, a evil twin that you have, by the way, because my response to your guys' games is going to be to first get a little huddle going with me and all my collaborators, which by collaborators, I mean all the people who did 1- and 2-star reviews on the games that you guys are talking about. And this one, I found somebody who has a common thread where they have 1-star reviews on 2 games on your list so far.
Sweet!
Oh boy, this is one of them. I wonder what the next one will be. Maybe it's the one you talked about before. The one you alluded to.
Yeah,
so
I enjoy it, but yeah, let's hear about some negative comments. Have any of you guys played this, by the way?
No.
I have.
Do you still have it?
No. I played it at a convention, and I thought, I've never wasted this much time at a convention before.
See, the most negative thing I think of it is that title is BS, because Eric Lang should not be stealing what should clearly be the title of a Splotter game.
Roads and Boats, Trains and Stations. No, that one's taken. That's that Eric Lang dice game.
Eric
Lang has designed some good games. This is not one of them.
There might be another one we talk about next that might beat this one. But
and the 1-star review that I would like to highlight for Trains and Stations says, "How did this ever get past development?" I will not read the rest of it because it suggests something horrible would be done to the people that allowed that to happen.
pushes it a little too past family friendly.
Yeah, I'm not into inciting violence. I think that this is all in good fun. I think that, come on, I mean, asking the question, how this ever get past development, that's okay. But these are people too. They're fine. They can make other games, maybe really good ones, like Trent talked about.
Well, I'd like to say for the record, this is before Zev got involved with WizKids, so it might be a legitimate argument.
Another 1-star review for Trains and Stations just says, "Crap, never again." 3 words. I don't know if it's like crap as in like I'm upset crap, or this is crap. It could be either way. It could just be like somebody like putting their hand on their head and going, "Crap, never again." Like just sort of like muttering under their breath, like the way that you feel, that shameful feeling that you get only after playing Trains and Stations.
Is it? See, my level of like worst game ever is when you start begging that the game has player elimination, and you will be the first to be eliminated.
And that's Exploding Kittens for Andy, which is why TC, when he said earlier that he would play this before Exploding Kittens, that was not something you should have felt comfortable about. That's definitely not the most. That's not praise. That's Andy being passive aggressively insulting. Jeez, Andy.
Yeah, well, it's like when I was forced to play Monopoly with my family, and I just made it my goal to get bankrupt as fast as possible.
I mean, you could just be like,
"Way to be a dad."
That's what your job is. That's why you play games, right? All right, Andy, could you please serve something up here for us to now give the old Andy treatment and insult it, this time not without the passive aggressive.
Okay. Let's start at the bottom. I did these somewhat in order. I'm gonna go with
Andy's list is obviously the bottom.
Nice.
My number 5 was Greenland by Sierra Madre Games. It's hard to get out because it's a simulation game. There is a crap ton of dice randomness in the game. And there's a lot of punishment where, like, you know, you'll put out your little workers. You're like, I'm going to go hunt a polar bear. And then, like, 5 out of 6 of your workers get eaten by a polar bear. And, you know, the game is just constantly trying to kill you off with, like, horrible events that are, you know, you can somewhat sort of plan for, but still, the game basically hates you. The players hate you. And you roll all these dice for that. There is some mitigation as the game goes on, but it very much is a simulation game. And while, you know, it's got a lot of dice rolling, it kind of takes long enough, and it's kind of heavy enough with the decisions that it can turn off people pretty bad. But I keep it around for one simple fact. I have yet to find another game where there's a card that literally says domesticated orcas.
TC,
That's it.
Sounds like it'd be like for you, man. That right there, doesn't that speak?
I have a copy of Greenland. I've played Greenland. My wife had a very interesting reaction after playing Greenland, to say the very least. It basically boiled down to, I don't need to read a dissertation just to learn the game.
Did you ever hear about the original copy, like that the designer submitted?
I do know that the one I have is a second edition, and that in itself upset a lot of people because they got the first edition, like then they did the second edition. Why I haven't bought the first edition?
Now you got the even more upgraded edition or whatever.
Yeah, that one, yeah. But I will say this for Greenland, and then I'll hold my peace. Any game where you can lose half your population to a venereal disease is okay in my book.
But what if it is and I'm drawing help here from one of my 1-star review collaborators, a dice-driven, convoluted, random, needlessly punishing, dry, abstract mess. That was a lot of comments.
I take objection with only one part of that. Needlessly punishing. I think it's very needfully punishing. No, quite frankly, like, and this is nicer than what it was originally submitted as. When the designer first submitted it to Sierra Madre before they developed it, nobody survived. Like, literally nobody survived. The person who won the game was the last person to die off.
Like, you actually played until they died too.
Oh yeah, no, you had to. Well, because that historically is what actually happened on Greenland.
It's like you've won and now you get to die.
Yeah, you died last. Therefore, you won.
Yep. Well, they also say this
is perfect for those times when you're sitting at home alone and you like reading a 32-page hard-to-read rulebook and you want to sit there and look at a bunch of cards, then you roll a handful of dice and lose.
Yeah,
that's exactly what Carissa said.
Oh, maybe yeah, its spiritual successor, Neanderthal, which is different but very, very similar. They added in the mechanism of where carnivores, like, you know, you can down like your ancient caribou and feel all good, and then like a freaking Tasmanian tiger or something will come and kill all your hunters and run off with it, and you still lose everything.
Mm-hmm. That's sounds like a lot of effort that you're putting into it, and then the game takes it from you.
Yeah.
Well,
no, the best one was when Phil Eklund was talking about a playtest, because one of the things you can do is, like, depending on which side your main card on is your victory condition, so you can either basically be Christian or pagan. And so you can, like, actually forcibly mess with people. So if you're Christian, you're gathering resources, and if you're pagan, you're gathering trophies.
Oh god, and this is the game where you can just flip over someone's card. Oh, guess what? You're not that anymore. You've just found Jesus. You're Christian
all your
now.
Suck, and you have no iron. Welcome to Loserville. And but no, Phil Eklund was talking about, like, he tried that in a playtest with his wife and his friend, and they, like, immediately stopped trying to win the game and just made it their goal to eliminate him, like, just wipe every cube off the face of the card rows. And he laughed about it, and he got to thinking, he's like, because his wife was like, I think it was like a major atheist or something, like she's very not like of organized religion. And then he remembered that his friend was actually from I ran and had been chased out by the clerics and everything out of the country. So yeah, he had a rather strong reaction to ministers.
Okay. Well, Andy, this is a good time here to move on to the why don't we go ahead and start with Trent? Why don't you do your number 5 right now?
Which one of these shall I choose?
I know they're not in any order, so I want to see how Trent does this because mine aren't in any particular order, but I have to make the same decision. How does Trent decide?
Oh, mine were actually in a vague order.
Yours are actually in a meaningful order, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll just go with the order in which I listed it so I don't get confused later and repeat the same game, which might actually happen because it's a Thursday night and Thursday nights I'm half dead. Okay, so we'll start off with Feudum. Feudum is I like how I described this when I was reviewing it on Twitter. Feudum is 80% the greatest game I've ever played and 20% WTF because like it's got amazingly interesting interactive mechanisms in it. Like this, it feels like a Vitalacerta game with all these interlocking gears that go together, and it's got this really beautiful, distinctive art design. And then there are points in this game here going like, what is happening in this game? I don't understand what is happening, and I find that fascinating. But to put it on the table involves like an hour's worth of complicated teaching. And there's a good chance that people are just going to look at the board and go, what? What is happening with this game?
Well, that's assuming they even get to that. The box art is like, what is going on with this game?
Yeah,
the box art is
amazing.
amazing. What are you talking about? The box art is fantastic.
Oh man, I've had people comment on that. Oh, it's on a rental shelf, and people just watching people look at that. They're like,
It's got a very distinct art style.
It does have a very distinct art style. I love it. I love stuff like this. And I'm going to mention this again when we get to our hype a little bit. But I find Feudum to be amazing. I'm way too intimidated to bring it to game night because I feel like I'm going to be teaching for an hour and then like probably half the people at the table are going to be like, what is happening? This is just nonsense.
Yeah, they're going to be like, okay, I get it. And then they're like, round 1, Trent, what do I do?
Yes.
I think that what I have to say, like, I'm not going to draw on 1-star Yelp reviews here because I think I have a stronger thing just to say that Trent's talking about a situation that I think you were in the game, Trent, where a new player that I was teaching who had not played tons of other games was just like super overwhelmed. And it was like, hold on, stay with me. And we ended up not even finishing the game just because it was like way too much. So, I mean, like, it's a game that I really want to play, but I am in the same boat as you, Trent. It's like, am I ever going to actually be able to get it played? Because I feel like we all need to be on the same page about it, and that's tough to do with the game that's really tough to get played with all the just mind-melting components it has to it.
Yeah, I think my issue with it is, and I haven't really played it or looked that deeply into it, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And my issue with it is everyone's like, it's going to take like 10 plays for you to figure out what's going on. It's that deep. Okay, I can do the same dang thing with PAX Renaissance, and I don't break my back trying to haul that thing to game night.
It's like saying there's only one game that you need that takes 10 plays to figure it out, man. That's like a huge compliment.
Here's the other issue, though. They're like, it takes 10 plays. Who the crap in the board game industry actually does that anymore? Like, I play it twice, then I'm moving on. I think the other issue I have with it, it's an issue I have with a lot of Kickstarters, is you're going to have to play the base game like 10, 15 times to understand what's going on. Oh, and here's like 3 boxes of expansions that we got out of stretch goals.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
They're never going to get to those.
No,
it's going to happen.
No, but yeah, it's one of those especially...
The thing I liked about this is a simultaneous action selection game, all right? So it means like you have a hand of 11 cards and you have to choose 4 of them each round to play. Okay, and those are gonna be your 4 actions for the round. Okay, so that's complicated enough, especially since one of those cards is literally an entire sub game by itself. I'm not kidding you, I'm serious. But it gets better. One of the expansions for that is everybody gets 5 more player cards, and at the start of the game you have to decide at the very start which 11 of those 16 you're going to use for the game.
The entire
of which
game.
4 you're choosing each round.
Mm-hmm.
If you're to the point in Feudum where you're playing that, you played this game an insane amount. Like, I love Feudum, but I honestly don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I'm not going to play that without people that aren't experienced. And when is this situation where I'm going to get to a point where I've got 4 or 5 experienced Feudum players at the table with me?
Yeah,
I'd love to get there, but it's not happening. I know it's not.
I would want to play a half dozen games like that just with the table that knew it before I even crack that thing open. It's like the expansion del Grande. You need to really, really know all the things going on in the game before you even care about designing this
del Grande you could actually teach to people in sub 30 minutes.
Yeah, what
exactly, and I still don't get to those expansions, man.
What got me about this one is actually there was some buzz about it, so I listened to a few podcasts, and I don't remember which one it was. They said some guy played it like 2 or 3 times and wasn't sure if he liked it or not. After 3 plays, I was like, after about the first play, I know if I want to invest in it or not and keep going. I mean, it could either be like a really good reaction, like I wanted to play this and get, I like it, or it could be like what I call the Arcrat reaction, where I don't know what I did wrong, but I did it really wrong, and damn it, I am not going to stop playing this game till I get better at it. So I'm buying this thing, right? So, but but to hear a reaction is like, I don't know after 3 plays, it's like, whoa, okay.
But yeah, the other thing though is like, to Trent's point is like, I'm probably someone who would do that. The trick is finding 3 to 4 other people who are willing to do that.
Yeah, I would love it. I'm going to be honest. Seriously, I'd love to find a group that would learn Feudum and play it enough times so we could use that crazy expansion. I think it'd be a blast to do. But I'm not bringing this to a normal game night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not. I mean, I will bring it if I've got the gamers that I trust that are all willing to sit down and learn and play this, and that will be willing to do it a time or 2 after that. I'd do it. But I'm not bringing it to rando game night. It's not happening.
Yeah, where you could get someone off the street. It's just like, oh yeah, I play all kinds of difficult games. Then you play, no, you don't.
You like your brain melt. You're like, yeah, huh?
Or they think they can handle it, and then like their first turn takes 25 minutes.
They're like, no, I've played the longest, heaviest game there is, Axis and Allies.
Oh yeah, 1 out of 2 of those maybe. All right,
my list. I'm starting with Watson and Holmes. This is a game that I feel very positively about. But it is basically like you take the stories from Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, chop them up into small pieces that are attached to locations, and then you make players compete with each other to actually get the information from locations to be able to solve a crime. It is a game that I am just really thrilled to play it. I don't play it competitively. I don't know why I'm so okay with the fact that, yes, it's a competitive-based game where I don't really take it that seriously, because I feel like I could flip over a card and I'm like, well, I just went here because I couldn't get to the place I wanted to go, and this is the best information, So, like, it's tough to really pack that much deduction when you've only got like 13 total locations you can visit. So it's like, obviously I want to go to the murder scene, but so does everybody else. So maybe I'll go to this random place and, oh, what did I do? I just found the murder. Oh, okay, cool. So I don't know why I like this so much, because that's like, making a competitive experience out of something that's very narrative, story driven, and something that I feel like I'd most of the time only enjoy as a cooperative. But that's why I put Watson and Holmes at the top spot on my, or not the top spot, but the first spot, I should say, that I'm saying in my list here. So anybody have any experience or have any reactions to Watson and Holmes?
Yeah, it's a game you play when you'd rather be playing Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but would rather
Trent,
be
you stole it. I was like saying, why would you want to play this when you have Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective on the freaking show?
See, my comparison was like something like, so this is like taking the original stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and like making, like teenage reading novels out of them.
yeah, like an R.L. Stein, like the old comic books where they do like the great literature classics in cartoon.
Exactly, or like the ones they make for educational classrooms. It's like, see what Holmes was really like.
This one says, I'm going to still collaborate here with my 1-star reviewers. It is a coma disguised as a game, but without the drama of whether you might wake up.
Wow.
Well, the real question is, if you're playing that game, do you want to?
All right. Well, that was my number 5. That's
It's like a horror movie. It's a horror movie. A dude is in a waking coma, and Joe has just been forcing him to play that game for years.
Let me go back. Let me go back to the dark place.
And all he can do
Sunken
is
place.
stare at it and like beg for somebody to realize his brain is active and save him.
Nice. Well, we're back around here now to TC with his number 4.
Okay, let me see what I got. Oh, my number 4. Oh, yes, this is such a Joe game. So, my number 4 is Quarriors, another Eric Lang gem designed with Mark Elliott, once again designed by WizKids. What is Quarriors? Quarriors is a dice building game that basically takes the mechanics of Dominion and is adding the added joy of random cards. You get random dice to pull in the bag. So you got double randomness. You're putting dice in the bag. You're pulling out random dice in the bag. You're rolling the dice, see what happens, and you're attacking people with your dice. And the dice corresponds to a card, which is a monster that's in the middle that everyone can choose from, just like every other deck builder in existence. Why is this game on here? Why is it my number 4? Well, it's because this game single-handedly saved my wallet from Pokemon. Because my daughter, when she was younger, wanted Pokemon this, Pokemon that. She just liked the cards. I'm like, hey, I got this game that's monsters. You roll dice when you fight with dice, and we can pretend it's Pokemon. Oh, that's great. And plus it had a dragon in it. And if you played any amount of base game Quarriors, you know that all you have to do is afford a dragon, get lucky to draw it, get lucky to roll it, and your opponent is complete toast. Now, I do like this game quite a bit still. I do like the mechanics. Unfortunately, it was completely destroyed when they decided to make a collectible model called Dice Masters. However, Dice Masters has taken a cue, and it looks like Warhammer 40K Dice Masters is not going to be random collectible. They're going to be sold in team sets with the base set. And as an extra added bonus, I just found out today, they're doing an ultimate edition of Quarriors called Quarriors Quultimate Quedition. Yes, that's right. I pronounce it right. Q's everywhere. Yes, this game is a linguistic nightmare because they make puns. They put Q's in all of it. It is arguably a train wreck of a game to people who don't like random dice rolls. That's why it's number 4. It's a game I badly want to play with Joe just to watch him punch me in the face when I start randomly destroying him with random dice rolls. So that is my number 4. I still enjoy it. I still break it out. I probably will be throwing down the $100 to get everything in there to at least have it, because for what it was, I enjoy it. We call it Thunder Dice because it is Thunderstone just with dice. That's my number 4. Another WizKids classic, Quarriors.
Okay, let me do this. Let me do this, gentlemen, please. So there's a game I like playing with my kids. It's all right. It's called Star Wars Destiny. Dice Masters is a strictly worse version of Star Wars Destiny, and Dice Masters is so much better than Quarriors that I'd rather play it, even though it's a collectible card game.
That's puts
Quarriors is what you got when Dominion cheated on its wife with a pair of casino dice.
Nice.
No, Quarriors is what you get when Dominion cheats on its wife with a Phil Eklund game.
I will say this in defense of Quarriors. I remember when I first bought my Dice Masters, and I opened it up, and instead of a cloth bag, I got some little paper bag, vomit bag you found in the back of an airplane.
It's a vomit bag for an airplane, yes.
Yeah. I was like, what is this garbage? So I broke out my Quarrior bag. Okay, here we go, guys. At least they came with some decent bags.
It is like, yeah, it's so rare that I open up a game, take a component from that game, look at it, and go, I'm throwing this away. This, like, it was so bad.
Yeah, and again, this is another one I like to say. So I got an Eric Lane game.
Game was going to produce at the table ahead of time, then, basically.
Hey, Joe, what component in the game was it that you threw away? Was it the dice?
Instruction book.
Joe was like, I will put this paper bag over the damn dice.
I'll draw on my collaborators here from the 2-star review this time. TC, I asked you at the beginning to place which game on your list this was said about, and it was Quarriors.
Oh, shocking.
Such a good idea that was so poorly implemented. There are dozens of variants out there that attempt to fix this game, including one that I made, but none are truly satisfactory. Best avoided. Well, let's leave that one to be best avoided for now and move on to Trent in his list. Am I doing the order out of order now? I think actually it's Andy. It's you.
I think it's Andy's turn.
Andy's turn right now.
So my second game is BIOS Megafauna 2nd Edition.
He's gonna go with all with Phil Eklund right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, there's it's majority, but anyway. So BIOS Megafauna 2nd Edition is the newest Sierra Madre game. It's a very simulation game, so I enjoy it, but I understand a lot of the science background of it. Basically, you got these little mountains, you're creating species, you're, modifying your species. That's half the fun. You can get, I don't know, like a dinosaur with a sexy smell or something by the time you buy all the cards.
Andy was so uncomfortable saying that it made it great. Just dinosaurs.
I was trying to think of the scientific ones they had on it. Anyway, it's still somewhat random because there's events that everyone has to deal with. So you can set yourself up, you're doing all good, and then like your con happens to be hit by a meteor, which just makes your day bad. And anyway, there's points scored. They did have a first edition of this game. The second edition is a massively strict improvement on it in terms of gameplay. So it's much more of a game than it is a simulation compared to the first edition. But still, there's a lot of choice they can do compared to, say, like the first game of the series, BIOS Genesis, which the choice is like, oh God, which randomness am I going to choose? But in BIOS Megafauna 2nd Edition, there's randomness mostly in the events cards as to what's going to happen at the beginning of the round, then everyone has to deal with it. After that, though, it's fairly deterministic. Like, you can make decisions, you can go by those decisions, you can increase this, you can do that. And you can somewhat plan for those, but it's still like it's in the science line of the Sierra Madre games, which makes it kind of a hard sell because so many people, look at the book or you start explaining the rules and whatnot. And if you have a bachelor's degree in biology, it all makes intuitive sense like it does to me. But there's a lot of people I know that have looked at this rule book, look at the first 2 pages and that half those first 2 pages are footnotes and just freak out, shut the rule book. And I'm never going to learn this game. Someone will have to teach it to me. So it's a hard one, but it's much more of a simulation game. The immediate comparison many people make is Dominant Species because it's a similar theme overall. I would say if you're looking at implementation of theme, BIOS Megafauna does it better. However, if you're looking for something that's more of a game, you probably want to play Dominant Species. There's a good game in BIOS Megafauna, but it is very simulation along with it. And, the universe just loves taking a random crap on your day sometimes, so you got to kind of deal with that, and some people don't deal with that very well.
Yeah, so I played this game once, and here's what happened to me. We sat there for about an hour and a half, not really doing much. The entire map became impassable, and then everyone died an hour later.
I was going to say, I like buying my games that have all the components in it. Cheap shot, I know, yes.
Or actually getting your copies, some people do not.
But I would argue the point is when I look at this, I'm like, I've got Dominant Species. Okay.
Yeah, there's a good game in BIOS Megafauna. It's just a real hard sell at game night. You got to have some deep nerdery for that game to be immediately appealing to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, Andy, I think you might be missing out on a friend from Board Game Geek who rates this game a 1 and says, same illogical crap as designers' other games. Not fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The thing about, I'll give Phil Eklund over that.
Agree with that.
Yeah. Phil Eklund, the thing I enjoy about him actually is a similar thing to Vlada Chvátil. He produces reactions. Very rarely do you pick up a Sierra Madre game and go, meh.
You know what else produces reactions? Poop jokes.
Oh, there's plenty of poop mutations in Bios Megafauna too as well. So
Exactly. I kind of set that up. So
Nice. Well, Trent, you set it up, and now it's your turn to serve one up for your number 4.
all right, I'm going to talk about Argent the Consortium, which is a really fun little worker placement game where the workers end up by the end of the game doing bizarre things like completely nuking segments of the board from being able to be used by anyone, or literally locking people into a room and killing them, like other workers. They can do all kinds of stuff like that on Argent the Consortium. If you like variable setups and you like variable player powers and you like workers that can actually do different things depending on your game choices, and you really like it. And also, if you like playing games that take 5 hours at a high player count, you're probably also like this one. It's got all kinds of options and stuff, and it's actually not too bad to teach. But the thing is, you got to accept that there's going to be rounds where literally your workers do entirely nothing, and there's only 5 rounds of the game. I've had rounds of this where a fifth of my game I did nothing because all my workers got locked into a room. Yeah, this is the kind of game it is. And it can take a real long time, to the point where there are jokes in our game group about playing 5-player Argent.
Yep.
Kind of a running joke. Yep. I really like this game. I've had fun with it. I had a number of different player counts, though I will fully admit that 5 players is probably too much for this. Unless you've got people that are really into it, it's probably best at about 3. And those people have got to accept that by the end of the game, everybody's variable player powers are going to be so ludicrous that really dumb things are going to happen. Like nuking parts of the map type of things. And that's Argent the Consortium.
yeah.
The only 1-star review on Argent the Consortium's page is that even has text that I would read, is something that I find just as inflammatory as anything else. So I'll read it for sure. It says here, a better recent example of myriad options with control and focus would be Caverna as a for example. Game's such a mess, this is the maximum effort I can put into commenting on it. So they served up Caverna instead of Argent, saying that it was not focused.
Yeah. I think of Argent as what happened when Harry Potter and all of his friends went to college, and they just removed all the restrictions on what you can do with your magic. So they just started murdering each other.
That's actually known as The Magicians, which is a good book series and also a series on sci-fi. That's literally Harry Potter: The College Years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but instead of that, they're just like, you know what? If you use your magic to murder other students, we're not going to hold you accountable. Just go for it.
That's kind of what happens in this game. If you ever wanted to play Harry Potter: The College Years, where there's a bunch of different houses and you're recruiting people to your secret organization that's drawn from like Hufflepuff and Slytherin, and you want them all in your house and you want them all to start murdering each other and destroying half the college, Argent is for you.
Argent is what happened if Voldemort would have stayed in power.
I think that I'm actually a much bigger, like, Argent's one of those games that's like aged for me kind of like a wine, like a nice fine wine, where it's, when I first played it, I think I needed some time to continue to see how, what it was going for. Because it does have, it has some extremely cool ideas, and I really do want to play this game more than I get to. So I don't know, when it comes down to it, my own personal thoughts on this are like, this game is a very well put together game that does a lot of, extremely bold player interaction moves while still keeping in sort of a tight Euro system. It just was a lot for me. I think that I'm put off by the artwork, I guess, a little bit, just because I feel like I don't know. I feel like that type of artwork, just sort of almost like that sort of very anime focused artwork to me is like almost pulls me out of an experience about Wizards, because I feel like, oh no, this isn't Wizards, this is anime. And maybe that's me being like short-sighted, because I know anime has tons of categories within itself, but like I have a hard time. Is there wizards in anime like that?
There's loads of fantasy anime.
I just like picture like this having like that sort of like attractive
you just gotta
looking
start
spiky
renting anime that doesn't have tentacles in it, Joe.
Thanks, Andy.
Oh my word!
Okay,
And
on that
now-
note, my only experience with this game is I was actually looking at it on the Level 99 website, and I saw Trent actually had a review or comment on there describing the game. And the first thing went to mind was like, what kind of corporate shield just hacks this game? What is this garbage on here? Are you kidding me? You know, Trent's going to love this. This is going to be like his top 10 list of all time forever now. Goodness, what is this garbage?
It's the what is it, like the wingman, the Top Gun, the high five and butt slaps.
Yeah.
Oh man, well,
If that was too low, I'm sorry, but I was just
no, it wasn't too low, dude. There is not too low. We're only number 4 right now, and I gotta get going on my number 4 because we got to get to the meat, to the top tier, the top 3. So my number 4, to round this out, is a game that I'd describe as like Mage Knight, the dice game, and I feel like it doesn't get any exposure. Mainly because the base game itself is a very interactive take, that sort of like moving around and fighting monsters, but you're fighting other players as much as you're fighting monsters. This is a Masmorra, the Dungeons of Arcadia, which is in the Arcadia Quest series, which does have that sort of like lighthearted fighting each other aspect to it, together with like other player versus environment quests that are necessary to complete to be able to win the game. I did feel like Masmorra Dungeons of Arcadia was a fantastic cooperative game that I thought was really cool to play when you're like trying to allocate dice, and I felt like there was always like things that you could do to try to make the best out of the dice that you rolled, and things that you could do to mitigate the luck in the game. But I specifically primarily played it as a cooperative game. I have played it as a competitive game before, with a group of high school students, and they really enjoyed it. But like, I just feel like Masmorra Dungeons of Arcadia got just no attention from the Arcadia Quest crowd that I think just prefer Arcadia Quest to the setup of Dungeons of Arcadia, where you've got like a deck where you're actually exploring the dungeon. But nobody played or cared about this game, even though it had the same miniatures from Arcadia Quest. This makes me wonder if like Arcadia Quest wasn't just this like huge fast flash in the pan, that half of the people that bought its next one on Kickstarter just bought it so that they could resell it. And there was like, people stopped really paying attention to Cool Mini or Not Kickstarters for the games and started just paying attention to like what people are willing to pay for them after they can't get them. So it's like this weird sort of, I feel like it's from a Cool Mini or Not bubble that may have reached its furthest expansion point for like the Kickstarter miniature projects, because there's almost always more people backing them than will really ultimately need the game, and that's why you find these like it's just not a viable investment anymore. But Masmorra Dungeons of Arcadia, I think, is a game that kind of is getting caught in the crossfire of a larger tendency, and I think that there's a better game here than what a lot of people acknowledge.
I've actually played this one, Joe, and my biggest complaint is, why the heck do I have to Kickstarter this thing at the maximum level just to get all the junk that this game comes with? I played it with a guy who like just went bananas and got everything for it. I was like, there is more content you can possibly play. There's some really good characters, but it's really a shame that some of these characters I really like, I will never be able to play without paying a tremendously high price point for, because they were Kickstarter exclusives. It's the thing that drives me up the wall with CMONs, Cool Mini or Not. It's like, it's all or nothing, and you don't know if it's going to be good or not.
I will say this much. I think that I'm not going to comment on the game. I played it, and I don't have any issue with it, but I think a lot of people bought this just as a character pack for Arcadia Quest.
Yeah.
I really honestly do, because they have cards for all the Masmorra characters. There's cards in it, so you can immediately slap them right into Arcadia Quest. I think a lot of people backed it for that.
Yeah, and they didn't even actually play the game or give the game a shot.
Yep, I think that's what happened. I really honestly do. Nobody
actually has even written reviews for the bottom ratings. The 1s and the 2s for this have like no written reviews. The only one that I can see here is somebody who actually refers to a game that this one's actually based off of, because it was Masmorra was a different game before they set it in the Arcadia world. So anyway, yeah, nothing up until the 3s do we get any comments, and there's not even that much of that. I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Trent. Nobody really even played this game. They just trashed it.
Yeah. What game were we talking about?
I think TC was going to talk about one. We were done with this one, though.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay, let me think.
Just like all the people who backed it.
All right, my number 3. This is the poster child for a Kickstarter gone bad. Everything that could go wrong with the Kickstarter happened to this game.
Up front?
Everything. I mean,
everything that could go wrong and the game still got delivered.
Yeah, because I mean, so mine is Kill Shakespeare from IDW Games. This was based on a comic book.
That's not what I thought you were going for. I thought you were going for Catalica.
Oh, no.
That's everything that can go wrong with the Kickstarter. Did this involve sun gods?
That is mythical. That is legendary. You have a good point there. But Kill Shakespeare, I think, is like a legitimate company where things just went off the rails. Catalica was just
still around.
Thing. Yeah.
What surprises me is that this company still exists. Like from what you're saying, like this sounds like this should have just crushed them.
Yeah, and it was from Pandasaurus Games, which got on the map by reprinting Tammany Hall. So I got this game knowing how bad it was. Because I like rubbernecking these things for some reason. In fact, when I went to buy this at the game store, the guy who owns the game store was actively talking me out of it. Right? And he was going to get a profit off of it. It was on a disc. I was like, don't get this. It's bad. I said, I know it's bad. Because what happened was it's a license that no one gives a crap about. It's a comic book no one's ever read. The Kickstarter was a disaster. The components were a mess. They actually got delivered to retailers before the Kickstarter backers bought it. That really got people wound up. And it was just coming from a designers who did Yuta, which is a game I actually really enjoy. Because that was supposedly the Lords of Waterdeep killer because no one gave a crap about either one of them. But what gets me about this game is there's actually a very, very good game in here that I think can be re-implemented and done better if it's rethemed to either like the Russian Revolution or maybe Animal Farm or something. It's got a very interesting take on how people work together to overthrow a government or a single entity. It does it with cubes. It's very Euro-y. It's got a really interesting the story, the way the story cards come out and execute, and the way everything goes. But I'm telling you, the components on this thing are unbelievably bad. There are chits that have reverse numbers printed on them. There are things you put on the board that are crooked that when you dial them, you don't know because it's right on the line. Like, I don't know where this spins. I mean, just the cards fall apart. I kid you not. The cards fall apart after a single play. It is the textbook example. I mean, if you want to look up how not to do a Kickstarter, this is up there. But there is a good game in here, and it's just really difficult to get people over the reputation this game has. And one of these days, I'm going to retheme this and present it, and people go like, "Oh, this is a good game. I kind of like this. What is it?" I'm going to say, "It's Kill Shakespeare." And you hated this when it was something else, and now you like it. You are a hypocrite. You are a hypocrite, sir.
Wow. Yeah, this our good old one-star collaborator says, at the request of the game designer, I took a second look at the game, found the game to be near unplayable without additional information. Some files available on BGG to help in playing the game. The game has a terrible rulebook and is just not that enjoyable. Skip this one.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the rule book is a train wreck. It is an absolute train wreck. Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention how bad Chris would want to just burn that. But it does come with the comic book if you want to read that instead.
Yeah, that's like
that was
the
a
main
shit goal, by the way.
criticism I heard from most people who like the game was it feels like there's a game in here that would be good, and you just can't see it through the weeds.
So it's like a Phil Lachlan game?
Nice way to go.
No, you just have to have an advanced degree to get through a Phil Eklund game.
Well,
yeah,
Andy,
so a Phil Lachlan game is about as fun as being as a postdoc.
Yeah. Well, I know. What was it? The old co-host for Punching Cardboard. Not the one they have now, but the one before that. I think if I remember right, he tried to read through BIOS Genesis and ended up putting his fist through a wall.
Wow.
Well, Andy, this game that you're about to talk about could send fists through walls as well.
Oh yeah, no, you punch it. No, you don't punch the wall.
You punch the other people in this.
You
game.
punch the person who didn't frickin' click the mouse. So the third one I put down is Space Alert. So Space Alert is a cooperative game and a real-time game. You get 10 minutes to basically do a mission. You're talking, you're crazy. If you're playing it right, you've downloaded the random app on the phone, so there's a computer voice yelling at you and like sirens, and then static comes and you can't talk to each other. And basically, you throw down some cards and then you resolve everything and see how quickly you actually died, which you usually do. So there's threats that come out. You have to deal with these. And basically, there's not near enough time to adequately plan out what's really going on in the game. So there's a high load of chaos. It's a hard game to get played. I enjoy the game, but it's hard to get it played because almost to a T, every time I've ever first taught it to someone, they never want to see that damn game again. Like it takes at least twice. Like it's a short game. Like you want to set it up in a night where you go, okay, we're going to play this once. You're going to hate it. We're going to play it again. You might like it. But it's just very difficult because to beat a mission, you have to do a fair amount of intricate planning and you just don't have enough time to really do it well. And so it relies on a lot of communication. It's really hard to get people in because if you're experienced, it's hard to coach a new person along because you only have 10 minutes. You don't have time to coach a new person along. And if you do coach them along, really what you end up doing is just taking their turns for them, and that's not fun for anybody. And also to do this game well, like I got the expansion for it. This game will probably never leave my collection. And there's things in that expansion that will never see the light of day because in order to get to the level where you could play with them, this would be the only game your group can consistently play for like 3 months, every game night, the whole game night. And then you would
fun.
Then you would have proficiency enough to actually play the hard stuff. So anyway, yeah, that's Space Alert. It's really unique for what it was at the time and what it is. I think it's still got staying power, but yeah, it produces some weird reactions sometimes. And depending on where you're playing it, it may or may not work. Like if you're playing it in a room where a bunch of people are yelling, like then you can't hear the computer voice and that's awful. And then sometimes if you bring something really loud so everybody can play the computer voice, like the people playing their, Euro games are like glaring at you with like death lasers in their eyes. That's Space Alert.
This is one of those legendary games I hear you guys talk about where things just went off the rails that I really want to play with you guys. Because just hearing about what happened and previous podcasts, I'm like, I want to play this with you guys. This is top of the list. It's just I've got to see this in action. I refuse to play it because I want my first play to be with you guys. I mean, that is how passionate I am about this.
Oh, this is going to do.
At some point, I usually feel like throwing my cards in the air and hiding under the table because it feels safer.
We got a good one-star collaborator here saying, I'm not interested in this type of experience via the board game medium. I do not consider this a board game.
There's a board.
Yeah, I got bored into the game. Technically, it qualifies, I guess. But you can say that about a lot of junky things.
Yeah, but it very much is like a time management cooperative game, and it does rely on that. But yeah, it's also like the rule books for this game are just entertaining reading because you're basically like you're in the Galaxy Trucker universe and you're like the scout ship for the Galaxy Trucker ships, which means like you're dying horribly every time you jump. You're in there, and it starts off with like the commandant walking up going, We are gathered here to pay respects of the crew of the mighty. Oh wait, that's in an hour. Welcome, trainees, to your.
Not your funeral yet.
And if you play it in campaign mode, there's like these character sheets, and there's like a box that you can check that says consent to cloning.
Yeah. That way you can die and come back.
Yeah, no, yeah, you can, but you get better experience points to upgrade your character if you don't consent to cloning. And then, like, the flavor text leading into it is just this woman who's like, I don't even know what version I am of myself anymore.
Nice.
Space Alert. Hey, Space Alert is like all the alpha gaming of Pandemic squeezed into 10 minutes.
Only 10 minutes. Fantastic.
Well, no, and here's the other thing. You play for 10 minutes and then take 20 minutes to figure out what the hell you did in those 10 minutes.
Which definitely puts a lot of people off. They're like, 20 minutes to resolve a 10-minute game. How can you stand that?
Then you go, let's set it up and do it again.
Yes. Like this. Multiple times. All right. Well, now it's time for Trent to tell us about his number 3 game, which I'll just let you read off of yours, Trent. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to what I have here in front of me. So what is going to be next?
I'm going to talk about Ortus Regni.
Okay.
Ortus Regni is a game that kind of simulates wars and invasions in medieval/ancient England. So it's got like knights and Viking invasions and stuff like that, right on the border of what's actually in recorded history and what isn't. And so it's a game where you build your own deck before the game starts out of a whole section of cards. So you have like 15, I don't know the exact number, but it's around 15 different cards you can choose to make up your deck. And you've got several copies of each, and you get to make up your deck completely how you want out of this. And you're basically competing with other players in the default mode. There's a bunch of scenarios for it, but in the default mode, you're competing with a bunch of other players to see who kind of is going to dominate, like King Arthur era Britain, basically is what it boils down to. So it's got a lot of really interesting things going on. It's brutally player interactive. You're just ganking each other in all kinds of various ways all the time. But it's got a very political feeling to it. Not that you're like you are sometimes just stabbing their knights and killing them, but at other times you're like putting imposters on the throne and stuff like this, just all kinds of different crazy things. It's an interesting hodgepodge of mechanics. You've got to tolerate really mean things happening to you, knocking down everything you build up so that you basically have to start from scratch type of things. There's this constant Viking invasion going on that if you don't agree with your opponent to an extent to do something about it, you both lose to the Vikings. All this stuff's going on, but here's the interesting part about this. So it's like a game that you build out of all these cards, right? And you've got this unique deck, right? And all these cards have different player powers, right? There's no text on any of the cards. None. They're blank.
They're vastly different, though. They're hugely different from each other.
Yeah, like the cards are just like, and they've got like tons of rules involved in some of these cards, like to fill, like actually summarizing the rules text of a couple of the cards to fill like half the card at least. And that would be a summary, but there's no text at all. In fact, you just kind of have to know them. It's a really
game. Do you hate flavor text? Try no text.
Yeah, nothing. It's just art. It looks like a tarot card or something.
God, that sounds like Sienna, man.
It is, but it's a lot of fun to play. The thing is, I fell in love with it due to the app, which is really, really good. It's free on Steam, and I really recommend you go try it.
Oh, holy crap. Hang on, I'm looking up now. Free on Steam?
ORTUSREGNI. Go on Steam and look that up.
It is also
RTUS_REGNI. Go look it up. It's a really, really good game, but boy, there are some weird things going on.
Card game
There's some weird things going on in it. Roast away, boys.
I was going to say, it's probably, if not the most overproduced card game I've ever seen, in the front running.
We have a extremely detailed 1-star, one out of 10 rater on Board Game Geek commenting here with, I'm just going to summarize here by saying their last sentence. Put words or numbers or anything on the cards, and it might become playable, but it still wouldn't be for me.
Huh.
Okay, there are training decks that are sometimes available that do have text on them, but it's basically you just get like this is the deck you're playing with deal. You don't get the part where you design your own deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say this much. In terms of component quality for the price, the components in this game are gorgeous. The cards are gorgeous. It comes with just like, it's so overproduced. It has like this wooden box for you to organize your cards while you're building your deck before the game starts.
It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's totally unnecessary. I actually have pulled those out of my base game box because I don't know when I'd ever use them. I don't have them in there. But I have like
one to carry to game night.
Well, see, the thing is, I have enough cards for 6 players to play this. I don't know when that will ever happen.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's ridiculous.
This has got a very positive review on Steam, and it is free to play. I am clicking download now, and I'll get back to you on this.
It's a great game. I'm telling you, TC, it's a great game. But man, this is due to the fact that this is kind of a labor of love for one dude, and he kind of has all of his quirks in it.
Okay,
and that's a for good or bad. That's a like simultaneously bad and good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is like the epitome of what happens when you don't have a developer.
Yeah, I think that like even when you look at the advertisement they use at Gen Con, like they sponsored the bags at Gen Con, I think 2-3 years ago, maybe. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, but they had just an image from the game. But guess what they didn't put on this image?
The name of the game.
The name of the game. It's like I knew that game was from Ortus Regni, but nobody else did. I knew that like picture, that bag. It's like, oh, that's great. But it's like the same sort of philosophy towards the producing of the game, which is like, let's make the best looking game ever and then make it really, really tough to play. Like just so unnecessarily difficult. Where like it is like a very it's like you're trying to parse medieval artwork to figure out what this card actually is, and that's separate from the next layer of understanding this very deep game. So I own this game, Trent, and I really want to play it too, but it just has such difficult hurdles to get over.
But the thing is, if you play the app and you give the app some time, it's really a fun game. It's great. I mean, I really am impressed with the game, but man, the components are beautiful and gorgeous, but man, in terms of making it available and accessible to new players, I've never seen anything that... It doesn't need to be like this.
No, they could have just easily put some cards... I mean, yeah, the intro decks are at least something, but like there could have been many more steps taken. So, I want to play this one, though. And I guess we're just getting TC. Like TC's like finally a list where I buy all the games.
Well, this was free. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm in. Click. I'm
so
there.
What you're saying is, in the morning I'll be getting emails from his wife.
OMG, OMG is what TC is going to be messaging us about 3 a.m.
Yeah, like, oh, this is fantastic. I gotta be at work in a few hours. I love this thing. Or Trent, what were you talking about?
I guess it stands to be seen, man. All right, well, thanks, Trent. That was Ortus Regni, your number 3. And now for my number 3, A Study in Emerald, 2nd edition by Martin Wallace. I think that it is strange that 2nd edition is rated much lower than 1st edition on Board Game Geek. I think 2nd edition, when I look at the differences, I've never played the 1st edition, but everybody that tries to tell me, oh, well, the things that made Study in Emerald so interesting got all ironed out, and they got all sanded down to the point where it's just very shapeless, and it just feels like it works better as a game, those air quotes over game, but people played this for like the silliness of seeing Sherlock Holmes mixed with Cthulhu. And I feel like this game is so unique already that like, wow, it just makes me wonder, like, how could 1st edition possibly be more unique than this already super, super, super unique mixture of an auction game and deck builder with hidden roles set in Cthulhu world with Sherlock Holmes? What is all this stuff? But it's not even Cthulhu world with Sherlock Holmes. It's like an anarchist game where all the people are not just from the source material of Neil Gaiman's The Study in Emerald, a short story mixing Sherlock Holmes and Cthulhu, but also like most of these cards are from like anarchist times back in the early 1900s. It's just ridiculously eclectic, and I can't believe that people are saying like, oh, this is more boring than the 1st edition of the game. To me, it works, and I think it's really just a beautiful game that is just totally overlooked by the hobby.
The first edition is a really, 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 really quirky deck building game. And if you like the quirks, I can understand why people are loyal to it. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I'm actually wondering if there's going to end up being like a similar reaction when Cole Worley's PAX Premier 2nd edition comes out. Where if there's going to be like the diehards that are like, I play first edition, which is weird.
Well,
I'm
glad you put this team on here because it's going to tie directly into my number one, which is why do people hate it when Martin Wallace tries to make a better game? Okay. When you said you were, I was thrilled you were playing Studying Emerald. I owned the first edition. My wife wishes I got rid of it because it wasn't the Sherlock Holmes game she wanted. It ended up being like this weird assassination Antarctic game, and she was like, "What is this? This is a Sherlock Holmes. I read the short story by Neil Gaiman. What is going on here?" I was like, "Oh God!" And I paid bank for that Tree Frog edition, first edition, when to get my hands on it. Because again, we're going to talk about bad Kickstarters. That first edition Study Emerald was a doozy at some points. There was some crazy things going on with that Kickstarter. But yeah, I haven't played second edition. I was really curious to try it out because typically I do like it when Wallace goes back to revisit his games and clean it up a bit. It tends to make it, if not better, arguably better, it does make it more intuitive to play and easier to understand. The prime example is that Steam compared to Age of Steam. Steam is a much lighter game. It's much easier. It's a lot more forgiving than Age of Steam. And it's a nice jumping off point to see if you want to go deeper into this style of game. But that's just me. I get a lot of flack when I say stuff like this. And there's going to be a lot more when we talk about my number one.
Yeah, very, very cool. I agree with what you said. But I would like to hear, is there anything else before we want to move on to our number two?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
TC, dude. Well, obviously we don't want to skip to your number one, but you've certainly hinted at what it is. Why don't you tell us our number two first?
Number two is oh boy. Okay, so this was a game that had a lot of hype with the heavy gamers that I knew, especially some of the podcasts that focus on heavy gaming. A Heavy Cardboard was like really chomping at the bit to play this. It came out and then it just freaking evaporated and no one was talking about it because some free review copies went out and then it just dove off a cliff. And what I'm talking about is Tin Goose by the design of Saki Ohara, which is, what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name. Chalkins is his last name. Published by Rio Grande Games. It is a economic simulator based on the airline industry. It's very light. It's got some really cool things. And one of the things I really enjoy about this one is how the players can tank the economy of the game, the stock market, by playing disaster events that only you can prepare for it, but you can execute it. I think that was probably a large issue most heavy gamers had with this one. I know that the bidding for turn order at the beginning, where you lost your money once you bid high enough, that really upset some people. When it isn't just like a one and done bid. It's like I bid 2, 3, 4. Okay, I bid 5, 6, 7. That kind of went on for a while. It was Rio Grande Games, so the components were okay. They're kind of notorious for advertising they're made in America, and you're like, ooh, okay, these components aren't going to be too well, because I'm telling you, the cards in second edition Dominion are noticeably different than first edition. But I enjoyed Tin Goose. I like it for what it was, a light economic simulator for the airline industry. You actually learn stuff. It like describes what the type of airplanes were and what they did, like the DC-10s and all that. And I love old propeller airplanes. I thought it was great, but man, I'm telling you, every time I break this game out, someone is always griping and moaning about this happened and that wasn't fair, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, I just tired of breaking this one out and listening to people complain.
Well, here's a good complaint for you, TC. This is from our one-star contributor. Actually, I'm translating from the Spanish here, and I'm not familiar with any cultural reference that would make this mean something to me more than it does. The comment would be more bad than white sugar.
More bad than white sugar. Well,
that's the one-star comment that I have. It's translated from the Spanish, which I'm guessing in Spain, white sugar is considered something quite bad.
Yeah, I think my problem, I had I think a personal issue with this game, and then I have a reason why I think it like hit and then dropped off the face of the earth. But my issues with it were, I did not like that opening auction bid because it just felt like if you screw that up, like you might as well just not even play the rest of the game. The events could be rough because we had a situation where there was a certain person in our game group who likes to target a certain other person, even if it's not necessarily winning the game. Yep. And so you can get that. And then it got to the point where like you could get those certain tokens that could offset some of the strikes or whatever they had. So like if someone spent one of their 2 actions, I'm taking an anti-strike token. Everybody just looked up and went, know what I'm doing my next action, don't I? Because if you don't, then you're going to be affected by it. My biggest issue for me though was like, I think I played this game 3 times. Twice I won it and had no idea how that happened. Like literally at the end of the game, they're like, "Oh, Andy, you won." I'm like, "How? I don't even know what I was doing." So I think it was that. Now, the reason I think it fell off the face of the earth, though, was, and no fault of the designer, but everybody knew him as the guy who made Sekigahara, which is a super clean, super rock solid block war game. And then this came out, and everyone's just like, I think a lot of people were expecting a very different game than what they got. And
TC described it as a long game, or as a light game, but it's like 90 to 150 minutes. So I think that's kind of a tough, if you're going to sell it to me as a light game.
It stays around a long time. It's very punishing. And yeah, there's times where it just feels like you're building up just to have someone like, set all of your jet fuel on fire. Mm-hmm. The one thing I think that made it really cool was the mechanism of upgrading your planes, where you
start with a terrible tableau, and then you want to get rid, which of these crappy cards do I want to replace? Which of these bad things is going to hurt me the least, or hurt me the most, and I'll get rid of that.
Right. And so that was that was probably the coolest part of the game overall, I think.
Very cool. Well, thanks, TC. That was Tin Goose.
Tin Goose.
And now on to Andy's number 2.
My number 2 is an
infamous game.
Yeah, an infamous Traffic by Cole Worley and Holland Spiel. An infamous Traffic is a very fun game if you like cutting your friends off at the knees and like then jumping up and down on their like stubs of knees while they're screaming in pain. Like it's a very mean game. So it's about basically being an opium trafficker in China. And so you're basically a drug smuggler bringing drugs into the area and whatnot. You're trying to then send people back to England to buy their way into nobility. So get these prizes, that kind of thing. The thing with an infamous Traffic is a lot of people bought it, I think, based on the fact it was from Cole Worley, who did PAX Pamir, which is, I would say, one of the better PAX games. And an infamous Traffic is very different. Like, it is mean. It is unbelievably mean.
Spiteful, as this 2 out of 10 comment and reviewer says on Board Game Geek. Spiteful, and it's not a fun or optional version of Spiteful.
Well, and here's the thing is I had a discussion on Twitter with a guy who's like, well, I found people like it a lot more if you play it nice. Like, you could play the game nice. You legitimately could do that. The problem is, at some point while you're playing it nice, it's going to be advantageous for someone to just shank you. And once one person does it, it's a race to the bottom. Yep. Like, because everyone has to be doing the same thing to have a chance of winning. So I found like the frustrating part for a lot of people when I've gotten it out is I'm, of course, like, shank, let's go to the bottom. And then you end up to where like you have practically no actions in the game. because everyone's economy is just in shambles.
Why do you make this sound like it's a bad thing?
No, I love it, but yeah, there's people that hate it. Well, and then the other thing is they bought it from a print-on-demand war game company, right? And a lot of people bought it based on Cole Worley, and I don't think they understood what they were getting into, because you paid $50 for this, and you got like a half sheet of counters. Now, they were very nice counters, but a half sheet of counters, some cubes, a few dice, a paper map, and paper little player screen tableaus to keep track of your stuff on. And a lot of people were like, I paid $50 for this. Like, they were ticked because they were thinking Eurogame or something. And that's not what this thing delivered. I've had success with it where a lot of people have liked it. And I've had people that are just like, I hate everybody in this room more now because I have been forced to play this game.
That person's name is Joe.
I would still play this one again. It's short enough, but there's elements here that I see in John Company. I know John Company's got a much more warm response generally, but like the way that you score points in this game is largely like, you know, you just sort of pulling out of a random pool of points. And I know that there's like randomness at that part, but like when it comes down to it, I think the designer's first responsibility is to make each element of the game appeal to the player that like the game is sort of targeting. And I think that, you know, when you make an argument towards, oh, well, this is thematic, and if any designer wants to make a game from this time period and not include randomness, then they're not being thematic. It's like, fine, give me a non-thematic game, but I want a game that's going to have some interesting, fun things to do. So I guess like it's that element of like, oh, well, if you want to score points here, you've got to roll well and retire or hope to get like this prize back home. Like, yeah, there's some things here that like harking back to it, like, you know, digging back in the annals of my memory, because I've only played it once. Like, you know,
it was great, wasn't it, Joe?
It was a sound choice to only play it once, I guess. I guess the 1-star collaborator, but I didn't think it was that terrible. It's just, I don't know. Like, I agree with the spiteful aspect to it. I'm like, well, why do I care? Why do I want?
It's distilled hate, the board game for sure.
Yeah, this is one game I would never, ever, ever randomly break out with the game group just because of the theme
you have to
alone.
Have the right people.
Yeah, I mean, just the mechanics is about being mean, but that theme on this game, I mean, it may be accurate, but it's a harsh theme, and a lot of people.
It's dark.
It's Opium in China, and the original title I think you should have stuck with.
Oh yeah. Oh God, what was that?
A foul wind.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
A foul wind.
Well, yeah, and you know it's a dark game, and you're going to offend certain people when you're immediately like, I'm putting down a missionary. Opium demand increases. Wait, what?
Yeah.
What was the other one too? I had saw. Dang, it eludes me now. Oh yeah. So like, the funny behind the scenes on this one was, Cole Worley said in an interview, there's only one game he's designed that he never, ever asked his wife to help play test. And it was this one. In fact, if I remember right, when he gave it to Hollenspiel, he fully expected them to come back with oh, this is just too mean. Can we lighten it up a little in a few areas? And they just sent back, nope, great, we're publishing it. And he's like, wait, what?
Whoops.
Nice. Well, that's Andy's number 2 in Infamous Traffic. Now, moving on to Trent's number 2.
My number 2 is Eminent Domain. Eminent Domain is a deck building game that has an interesting. The thing I like about it is very distinctive. Is it has this follow mechanism where on your turn you play a card to an action, then you play another card, and then you add a card to your deck of the choices available to you. And then the other players have a chance to follow that and also do a slightly weaker version of that mechanism. So the game keeps going around the table pretty fast. But the thing that a lot of people complain about this is, especially if you're just playing the base game, is it can feel like your options are kind of limited because there's only a few cards out there to actually choose from. What they're not appreciating is that, one, you can't upgrade the cards in your deck by doing the research mechanism. There's a big pile of cards which you always have access to that are upgraded cards that you can add to your deck. And two, manipulating those stacks of cards to make sure they run out when you want them to run out is a big part of the game. That's, to me, is a lot of the fun of the game. So I found that this is very polarizing. Some people really like it. Some people really hate it. I don't bring it to board game night as much as I'd like because I don't want to deal with the people that really hate it.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I'd say that the polarizing aspect is that, like, some people think, and I guess maybe I'd be in this camp that, like, you know, I prefer it with an expansion or two, you know, and there's folks that just don't want to play expansions, period.
Yeah. Were you the one that, like, did all research the first game?
I did. It was devastating. Like, I had a deck that just all it wanted to do was consume itself.
That can happen.
It wanted to eat cards out of its own deck to the point where I had nothing I could do anymore. It was like I built rats in a Dominion deck build. It's a devastating purchase of rats.
My Carissa did not like this game at all. She was like, why am I playing a space game where I just mine planets for rocks? This is boring. This is one of those few misfires I had because I really like the designer, Seth, and Tasty Minstrel. And I think this is one of his better designs and one of his better games. And I love this game with the expansions, but this is a game that, well, she will never play again. And I have to say, I do kind of have an issue with this game because have you guys played the microcosm version of this? I've never played a game. There's only 2 games I can think off the top of my head that takes longer to score the darn game than it takes to play it. An Eminent Domain, Microcosm, and Sobek top the freaking list on that. I was like, why is it taking so long? That the rule sheet for Microcosm was like 1 sheet of paper that was it was a mess, and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, hey, Carissa, look, I have Microcosm. She's like, burn it. Get rid of it. And that's one of the games I just keep on the shelf just to be like, okay, I still got it. You want to play it? And she's like, okay, I'll put it next to Epic here. Well, so they can keep each other company. Epic, the card game, and Eminent Domain, Microcosm. But yeah, it's one of the games I like, but I agree, Trent. There are people out there who just don't like it. Just the theme or the mechanics or something just rubs them the wrong way on this one.
I think it's a really cool design. It's just such a very interesting game, but I do think that polarizing because the base game does not have the variety that I think that even players that keep coming back to it appreciate about the expansion. So, you know, maybe a little bit more with the base game would have caused a lot less people to shut the door on it. I'm going to go ahead and give the last of the 2s here, which is going to be Kingdom Builder. Kingdom Builder is just, I feel like, a game that just gets constant crap thrown at it. I feel like it is one of those few winners of the Spiel des Jahres anymore. Like it's of the winners of the Spiel des Jahres where there's a really interesting core mechanism going on where you're trying to sort of build your kingdom in a way that you have adjacencies to the places you need to be adjacent to without having the pesky adjacencies to places you don't want to be forced to build into. I love the way that you're like, I mean, you're drawing a single card. You know, they call it a hand in this game, but you draw a single card and you are forced to play your entire turn on cards of this card, which is like one of 5 different terrains. People hate this mechanism, but I think that the rest of the game built around it, it gives you fantastic ways to mitigate and deal with the way that your settlement is built. You'll start building up this slew of abilities that you can use, and to me, the game is one of the best. I think that out of the base game box, Donald X. Vaccarino's best game is Kingdom Builder. Unless you're going to add in tons and tons of expansions, which in Dominion make the game better, in my opinion. Here in Kingdom Builder, the expansions immediately make the game less refined. I feel like there was less space for expansions in the design of Kingdom Builder, but I love it the same. So that's my take on Kingdom Builder. What do you guys feel like this one gets the hate it deserves?
I don't know. I played it once and was like, oh, I'm laying down little houses. I'm done.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was, to be fair to the game, to honestly be fair, this was coming at a point when everyone was like, oh, look, Donald Vaccarino has another game that's not as good as Dominion. Why are we playing it? Because there was another few games that came out. I remember there was one. It was like some weird time travel game. It was weird, and I don't remember Temporum. I think
Temporum,
a fantasy flight game based on the Android universe called Infiltration, and there is a few other, and this is all coming out of like, why was Dominion really just a one-hit wonder thing? And I think Kingdom Builder got tied up into that, and it certainly did not help that Queen was publishing this game. I'm gonna be flat out honest with that, because Queen had, I don't know what went on, but there's like some Kickstarters that Vaccarino didn't approve of, and it was a mess. And Queen did not do any.
Did it also have like a box 5 times bigger than necessary?
Yeah, and so maybe some of it's just because of the publisher itself, because I remember the firestorm that went down with
it was
game.
because it caused Tabletop's producer and Will Wheaton to hate each other.
No, well, okay, well, so there's something. So I think maybe it just got caught in the whirlwind of that, but yeah, but people do like it. I just remember going, oh, I'm just putting houses down. Neat. Okay. Next.
Yeah. For me, it came out
There's
right.
More there, TC.
I do not doubt it. I do not doubt it.
It came out right about the time I was starting to really move past gateway games. And so by the time I saw it, I'm like, I don't care.
Fantastic. This one-star contributor tells us, played a few times. Why would you play a game where the game tells you where to play? Not for me.
Yeah. Unless you just really like putting houses on boards.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do, actually. Like when TC said that, he's like, "Oh, you just this game where you put houses out." I'm like,
what you don't see is Joe
favorite.
Joe currently has one of the Kingdom Builder boards to the side, and he's just putting green houses on it.
Yeah, I just like whenever you see my hands fidgeting around in the live feed, it
stuff.
is me placing all this. Just I bought the bucket. What is it? The pound o houses.
Pound of houses.
Pound of houses, like the pound of dice, only it's a pound of wooden houses in random colors, and I just place them onto a hexagonal board. It is so therapeutic. It's my every evening for me.
Yeah, it's what allows Joe to put up with us without like.
I gotta do something constructive. I gotta build houses.
Yep. Well,
I can't say anything bad about this game because it's one of my wife's absolute favorite games, and if I say anything bad about it, I'd be sleeping on the couch.
Nice. There's a good, solid reason.
I picked the right game for this list.
Valid.
All righty, TC. Go ahead and kick us off with the ones.
The ones. My one, we're going to tie it right back into Study in Emerald 2nd Edition. This is another Martin Wallace game that got some people say streamlined. I say got more intuitive to play, and that is Age of Industry. I tell you something, guys. You break out Age of Industry in front of brass players, and it is like the apocalypse just happened. It's like, what is this? Oh, you got the weenie version of brass. This is nothing like brass. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Brass is the poster child of a fiddly game. I'm sorry, I said it. Yes, please, I want to hear a story where you did not mess up your first 3 games of brass. I have still yet to play a game of brass where I was teaching it and someone didn't screw something up in that game so bad that we couldn't even continue playing it. And a lot of it is just reminding people, hey, every action takes a card no matter what it is. And you're always telling people, did you draw up to 8 cards? Did you play your cards? Did you draw up to 8? Because that is such a huge part of that game. Teleporting still, nightmare. What Age of Industry did is it took the rule set of brass, took out all the fiddliness, made it modular so you could use different maps on it, and made the in-game victor condition very simple. Very simple to explain Age of Industry. You say it's all about money. Every dollar you have, you add it up, you divide it by 5, and that's your victory points. That's what you're shooting for. Then there's no canals. It's just rails. And I've got freaking 6 maps we can play. I got 2-player variants. It's easier to teach. I think it's more intuitive. The loans make a ton more sense in Age of Industry than they ever will in brass. But that being said, honestly, I do enjoy both games quite a bit. If you actually push me to a wall and threaten my life and said you must choose to, it'd literally like be me asking me to choose between my 2 favorite children of mine. I love both my children, but I'm telling you what, there are some things I would take my daughter to that I would not take my son to. Right? Just based on the personalities and the demeanor of them. And the same can be said for both versions of these games. Brass is, I'm almost to the point where I don't want to play brass if I'm teaching it. I just want to play the game. But Age of Industry, I'm willing to break out anytime and teach it to anyone. And it's a really good stepping stepping off point if you want to get into Brass, because Brass is a very, very good game. I just like giving people grief about Age of Industry and Brass. That's a lot of fun. I always catch a bunch of grief for it, but hey, that's who I am, and I like causing a stir. So that's Age of Industry, Tree Fraud Games, Martin Wallace. Refinement, you could arguably say so, of Brass. Still one of my top economic games out there. I'll play either one at the drop of the hat, but honestly, I do prefer Age of Industry.
And is this like the dreams I have where I'm sitting, in mayhem, and like someone comes in and they're like, look, I got this new game called Steam. And then like my dream goes to an exterior view of mayhem and you just see the box fly out the door, and then a second later the person who brought it in.
Oh, I would say, Andy, that like it's different because Brass is, just Brass, and Age of Industry to me has a certain like malleability to it that makes it appealing to a different, like to a totally different part of my brain than what Brass is more targeting. So I don't know, like to me, I appreciate them both. I appreciate what TC said. But this user right here says, and we have a user who on Board Game Geek has 5 micro badges that are all different forms of 18xx track. And they say, nope, not good at all. Please pass me my copy of Brass, ... Yeah,
it's interesting because like the most vocal people who don't like it are people who play Brass. And it's, you try telling them, you're like, look, it's more intuitive. You don't have to worry about all these weird things in Brass. And they're like, well, it's like they've just gotten so used to the quirks of the game that they can leverage that to their advantage when they play. It's a very weird thing. It's kind of odd.
Martin Wallace first editions just seem to lend themselves an elitism to them. And in Age of Steams, I believe it is deserved, I guess. But I don't consider that being elitist. I just think that like, Steam just has less expansion maps out there, and I feel like there's just, it's more, I don't know, maybe I should be more open to Steam, but I would just rather play Age of Steam. I don't know. Anything to weigh in there, Trent?
Any more guys? Come on. I picked this one because I wanted some big reactions. Come on.
I stopped paying attention to your review halfway through because I was playing Brass.
Okay.
Well, Trent, could you interrupt that game of Brass here and tell us what your number 2? Or wait, I once again tried to skip you, Andy. I keep trying to do that, man. It's almost like I don't want to hear.
It's your defense mechanism for any game I want to bring out. We're just at game night, and Joe's like, does anybody want to play anything? I'm like, Joe, does anyone want to play anything?
Welcome to Sunday night game night, gentlemen.
Oh, yes. No, Andy, nobody wants to play that. Oh, does anybody else want to play anything? So what's the game that nobody else wants to play, Andy? The number 1 game nobody else wants to play.
Yeah, this one was a no-brainer for me to pick of games that are hard to get anyone to play to game night. High Frontier. Like, I don't know of another game that I can show just an image of what the board looks like, and their eyes get like big and their pupils contract. They're just like, no. No.
That's a game that just, the reputation of that game alone precedes it.
Yeah. Well, it does. And the thing is it's not like most Sierra Madre games. It's not actually as bad as it looks, once you get into it. But it does have that reputation for being nasty because, yeah, you can just be like, I put all my rocket together. I've been here for 3 hours. My plans are ready to go. Nah, I can do an aero brake maneuver. I don't need to pay the extra fuel tanks it'll take to not fail. It's only a 1 out of 1. My rocket exploded.
Yeah, this is the game where I played most of the game when I miscalculated my orbital trajectory, and I saw that rocket that I spent all game playing just go away forever.
Yeah, you miscalculate. Yeah, your like fuel you need, and you just strand a crew, and you can't do anything else till you go pick up the crew because new crews won't work for you.
We have a 2 rating here on Board Game Geek that says I really should rate this a 1. Reading on, it says the auction income generation system is just a horribly boring waste of time. Not a single game I can think of does auctions this way. I don't understand how others can think this is an ingenious system, that every other game designer using an auction economy has not chosen this system. There's a reason. it sucks.
Yeah, it's an
I'll just
interesting
stop there.
action mechanism, but yeah, no, and you want to talk about like a poster child for ungodly bad Kickstarters? Yeah, the third edition one. Holy crap!
That third edition was amazing to watch go up.
Well, as far as I know, I don't even know if Phil Eklund still has ever been paid.
Holy cow! Yeah, and then
they spelled his name wrong.
In regards to High Frontier, I think the biggest reason why I don't actively pursue playing this or even owning it is in large part as I have Leaving Earth.
Yes,
you're right. So if I'm going to be building rocket ships that's going to blow up on the launch pad, I've got Leaving Earth that can do that. It's like, I just invested all this money for the research, my Saturn V rocket, and I just flip this card. There goes like, what, $30,000 of my budget. Whoops.
But CTC, if you owned High Frontier, after BIOS Origins comes out, you can start with BIOS Genesis and go all the way through all the games to interstellar travel.
Oh, that might be a few years of my life I might not ever get back.
I think if I remember right, like some dude is like planning on doing that as a tournament.
So Andy, can I just start this game with my rocket already blown up?
Yeah. You can never get it off the ground because and that is like a legitimate thing. Like literally the first 45 minutes of the game is you doing nothing but I'm auctioning a card, I'm selling a card, I'm going to take 2 water tanks. Do I have enough water tanks to actively plan a mission now?
Nice. So
and that doesn't even take into account the 50 billion expansions you can put into the game. Yeah. Like weapons. We could just Joe, you're in the same spot as me. I'm just going to laser your fuel tank.
Fantastic. Or I guess it's Andy, not TC.
If he's aggravating you, I can understand the confusion.
TC actually likes an enjoyable space game.
Actually, Leaving Earth is one of those ones, and I'm like, I should so own this, and I don't.
When I got Leaving Earth and started playing, I'm like, this has got Andy written all over this game. It's got like weird components that look like it was published in like some dude's basement. It's got this weird packaging. The rule books looks like a technical manual. I was like, I know he owns this game. He's got to have already owned this thing.
I don't. I should. It's right up there with my, like, if I become like an infinite board game budget, what games am I buying right off the bat?
Yeah, that would be nice though to have, wouldn't it? And it wouldn't be nice if we had an unlimited budget of time as well in our lives. But alas, thank you TC and then Andy for you guys giving us your number ones. Now Trent, we just got you and me left to go.
Yep, I'm going to talk about Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is a 2-player only game that takes about 3 to 4 hours that essentially compresses all of the Star Wars movies into a single board game. Unfortunately, that board game happens to devolve into a gigantic game of hide and seek or guess who, depending on your interpretation of it. Just with a lot more rules and some dice-based combat. Feel free to kick it in the dirt.
All right, so it's derivative. It's just Lord of the Rings, the War of the Ring, but they just were like, oh, let's add Star Wars to this. Yeah. Ugh.
Oh boy, I got this game when it came out, and I played the crap out of it, and I really enjoyed it. But then it broke thematically, and it really drove me up the wall. And what did it? Was there was a situation where, as the Empire, when I'm playing the Empire, the 3 planets are automatically on my radar with the Death Star. Naboo's going away absolutely as soon as possible. I'm going to nuke Yoda out of existence as soon as I can, and usually the Alderaan has to go. If you're playing this game with the Empire, if you put your rebel base on any of those 3 spaces, you've just lost the game. But there's a situation where I could blow up Dagobah and the Rebellion player could still play a card where Luke could train with Yoda. I was like, no, you can't do that. I just vaporized Dagobah. Yoda's a ghost. How is this possible? Dagobah doesn't even exist. no, that doesn't happen. If I blow up Dagobah, there's no way you can train with Yoda. And then the rules facts came out that said, no, you can still do that. It's like, no, please tell me how that is possible. That just, I was just like, no, I can't deal with that. It just drove me up the wall. And it's just that one thematic break that did it for me.
I think I found my soul brother or sister here on Board Game Geek in the 1-star review of that says, all that hype for a game that boils down to dice rolls. Sad and doesn't deserve your money or time.
I'm not disagreeing.
It's not my words. You don't have to blame me. Yeah, it's that's Star Wars Rebellion. So Trent just serving it up there, right? Just serving up.
Just not even gonna try to defend it. It's like whatever. It's got the altar.
Run with it, guys.
For me, feel free to run over it a few times. Back up too.
Well, for my last one here, it's just the game that I feel like is the poster child for. I start to suggest it, and there's somebody in the group that's like, "Nah, I don't like that one." And it's Blood Rage. Blood Rage is like €2 for the dice roller, thematic Ameritrashy gamers, and it's too conflict heavy for Euro players. So you guys go ahead and run with that. What do you guys think about Blood Rage? Is it Eric Lang's? Is it TC? Is it not worth putting on this list? But Quarriors and Trains and Stations were.
Well, I have officially nicknamed that game Butt Rage. Because the reason that game drives me up the wall so hard is that the first time I played it with people who knew how to play it. And one of my pet peeves in a game, even if I get lapped on the victory point track, and that happened like the second, because it's like 3 eras or something, that 3 different phases, and it happened on the second phase. Someone just lapped me. I'm like, why am I sitting here and taking this? This is. Well, at least I can look at the minis, I guess, but whatever. And I know if I went back and played it, and if I understood more effectively how the the card drafting worked, I might give it a fairer shot. But man, I don't know, was it the people I played with or just getting lapped? It just really got under my skin. I'm getting lapped. I was like, dude, why am I playing this? I got Chaos in the old world. I've got Quarriors, for God's sake. At least I can be chucking dice and having fun instead of just taking it. Yay.
Are you the guy who sits down and says when you realize you're going to lose, you say to the rest of the table that seems more invested in the game than you, so there's no random here to help me out?
Oh, pretty much. Or I just start going. I'm pretty notorious for like going, oh my God, he really hates this game. And then later I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. But you said you hated it. Oh, I'm just messing with you guys. It was actually a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, any more butt hurt for Blood Rage?
I don't know why I would ever play it again when Rising Sun exists.
And Andy's got he can't be with us anymore. So toodaloo, Andy, and I think we'll just blame that one on Blood Rage. He rage quit. He Blood Rage quit. So anyway, bye, Andy. And now transitioning into our hype section of the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, where you actually will not hear from me. I'm just going to let this hype go because I think the game I was going to talk about, I really don't want to say anything until an announcement that I learned about gets said, because I was going to kind of bring up something that might be a little controversial, but it might be all fixed by the time that this episode even releases, and I wouldn't want to give what might become outdated information right now. So just, especially right now at the point that we're at, I'm punting my hype. And so let's go ahead and start with both of you guys have very contextually appropriate hypes. Let's go ahead and kick it off with TC telling us about it, specifically what you're looking forward to with the what's coming with the Lord of the Rings card game online.
Yeah, I just got finished watching like I said earlier in the podcast, they're doing streams Tuesdays and Thursdays. They seem to be real on top of it. I'm excited for what's rolling out. They're talking about getting challenges. It looks like they're really taking a hard look at the monetization of this game. If you've tried it, you didn't like what you saw, and you still have access game to try it out, man, keep on top of it. Like Trent said, I think there is something really good here. I'm enjoying the decks what I got, building them and playing them. Then I just go, oh look, I got Valor to spin. Okay. But yeah, I'm excited for what's coming with this game. I like the attention to detail. I mean, it's so easy to release something online and be like, it's done. We're going to make money. Who cares? But they seem to be really, Fantasy Flight Interactive seems to be taking this thing quite well and listening to feedback. So yeah, I'm really hyped about Lord of the Rings, the digital version, and where it goes. I mean, I'm enjoying it.
From what I get from you and Trent is just that this game has got some weird issues, but a lot of promise.
Yeah.
Yep. I'd agree with that. I think if they get their monetization figured out and have more variety, have more content, I guess, I think there's a good game here.
Oh, and just to, if anybody's actually survived listening to this for this long, I know, okay, hang on, this is going to be a really shocking announcement. I actually posted something on the guild. Get out. Get out.
TC was on the Good Board Ugly Guild?
I just did it while we were talking. I posted my starter deck builds I've been playing with the game. They're on the guild. I've been using them quite effectively on the normal difficulty to get Valor points and stuff. They seem to be doing really well. So if you're having difficulty with the game with building decks, there are 2 decks on our guild. Give them a shot and give us some feedback and let me know what you think, how they work.
Very cool, TC. So that's the Lord of the Rings card game update. And now we may have heard a little bit about it earlier, Trent, but which of the myriad expansions to Feudum are you talking about in this?
Talking about the one that allows for solo play.
Woo!
Yes,
it's like the new separate, does not come in the original Kickstarter.
Yeah, because it was still in development when the original Kickstarter went up, is the reason they did it separate. It's basically, I have read through the rules, and it sounds like you're playing. It's just a solo way to play Feudum. It's to really explain it, you have to get into how Feudum works, how the game works, and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into it, or else we'd be here, like I said earlier, for another hour, and we don't need to do that. So if I said to say, I think this is a way for me to scratch my Feudum itch pretty well without having to subjugate myself to dealing with other players with this.
Yeah, they could be variables that you don't know how to predict. So this one sounds like I'd like to as well try it. If you get your copy in and you're finding it to really do, like show you.
I got my copy in. It came in today.
Oh, fantastic, man. Well, cool. We'll hear how that goes. Maybe on an upcoming review then.
I hope so. I have to find a nice window with which to do this, but yes.
Well, make time. Do it now. Okay, we're ending this episode so that Trent can immediately go to playing a solo game of Feudum. So, Trent, thank you for agreeing to do this. And TC, it's been a good episode with you.
Yes, I'm glad that our little our idea worked out. I'm quite proud.
Oh yeah, no man, it's been a blast getting through everybody's list. So this is
Andy, speak up if you actually think Phil Eklund's a good game designer.
Yeah.
Okay, now we know the truth. Now we know the truth.
All right. Well, now that we've established Andy's opinion of Phil Eklund, we are done on this episode of The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. Have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week on The Good, the Board, and the Ugly.